Awesome. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to have your attention for, the rest of the evening, please. My name is Leisha Van Nieuwenhove. I am the publisher and editor of the Uxbridge Cosmos, which is the newspaper that is sponsoring this evening's event. As Uxbridge's only truly local newspaper, I can say that we are incredibly proud to be able to do these forums for the community, and then it's so gratifying to see this room absolutely filled. Thank you for being here. It means a great deal to me, to the candidates, and to our town in general. I would like to thank Ted Barris for being our moderator this evening. Not yet, but he'll be awesome, we know that. I would like to thank my assistant Sue for helping out. She's giving me withering looks. And I would like to thank Larry Whitelock at Stage 1 Rentals for doing my AV equipment. I would also like to welcome Rogers TV here this evening. They weren't here last week, but they would like to do the mayoral, regional chair, regional councillor debate. So they are here. Just pretend like they're not in the room. A couple of housekeeping notes before we begin. If you could turn off cell phones, that would be appreciated. Not that anybody has a BlackBerry still, but if you do, it has to be thrown away because it interferes with the sound system, and I'm being serious about that. It needs to go off. I can hear a whole bunch of Blackberries toning down. I will let Ted Barris explain the format of the evening so that you understand what's going on. Our candidates, I think, have been fully informed. If anything arises during the evening, you can come back and speak to myself, talk to Sue, or we'll just let it ride and see what happens. Thank you again for being here. Enjoy.
Thank you. On behalf of the Uxbridge Cosmos, I too would like to thank you for coming this evening to our second of two municipal forums on the candidacies that are up for election this term. There's a point I'd like to make before we begin, and it was pointed out to me at one point this week that election signs have been vandalized around the community. Yeah, my reaction's the same, and it should be right across the board. They've been popping up. Election signs are a normal and regular part of the democratic process. It's a candidate's right to display them, and nothing, not even a notwithstanding clause, can allow anyone to deface or tear them down. So please, let's be a model community for fairness and democracy, okay? I think you already feel that. That's great. Thank you. Last week, I didn't sufficiently thank some individuals who've assisted us in not just this evening, although Larry Whitelock, who is always here with Stage 1 Rentals to prepare the audio and does a masterful job of keeping us able to project to you. He does it every election, and he doesn't get nearly enough praise. I want to thank him personally for that, Larry. Thank you. I also think that Leisha doesn't get enough credit for what's happened here, and I don't just mean that it's the paper backing this. Everyone who has been reading the paper the last year recognizes that Leisha has dedicated a great deal of editorial and story generation and community awareness building to ensure our two election forums were well attended, and this is evidence that that's the case. And so over this past year, she's raised the issues in news copy, photography. She's challenged the reporters to do the same. She's invited community specialists such as Doug Griffiths to bring the 13 Ways to Kill a Community Town Hall to Uxbridge. It was an extraordinary evening. It was just one event of many to help bring this to a crescendo. And she herself has written editorials and stories, receiving recognition finally by the Ontario Community Newspapers Association this past year. Congratulations, ma'am, for a job well done. And why is all that important? Well, particularly the past 2 weeks, when we've seen municipal authority and autonomy uniquely and stridently challenged to its very roots. I cannot think of a time in the life of our electoral history when this process, bringing municipal and regional candidates together with the public to elect the representatives closest to their daily lives. I cannot think of a time when it's been more critical to show those who would doubt our sense of involvement, our need for input, our desire to exercise our democratic rights than in the 2018 Ontario municipal elections. You've proven it this evening. Okay, here's how the evening will proceed. Each candidate has 2 minutes of opening statement to offer a brief view of what she or he believes is perhaps the most important township or region issue. I'll give them a 30-second warning so you hear me butt in just before you conclude your opening remarks. When all the candidates have finished their opening remarks, if there's room, I'll try to squeeze in a question to kind of get the juices going. The most important element of this evening is the forum to give you the opportunity to ask the questions that you need to have answered. Again, I emphasize questions are important. This is not a platform for you to make a statement. We're trying to get the candidates to speak. I recognize that context is important, so I'll be just as tough on you at the microphone as I am on these folks, okay? When you come to the microphone, and you don't have to, if you'd like to pass the question to me on a piece of paper, you don't want to stand at the microphone or speak, please do that. When you come to the microphone, please give us your name so we can make sure that this is civil. We understand that people have representations personally, and if you represent a lobby group or are an obvious supporter of a candidate, please say so. We don't mind that you're addressing a question to the candidates, but let us know who you are if that's the case. Let's be honest. And at the end of the evening, the candidates will have a bit of an opportunity in a minute or so to give us a wrap-up. We hope to finish things in about 2 hours or thereabouts so that the candidates can also have an opportunity to mingle with you at the end of the evening if you have one-on-one questions you'd like to ask. Okay? Any questions? Good. I'm going to invite the candidates in alphabetical order. First with the mayoral candidates. You don't have to use the lectern, but you may. And then through the rest of the evening, I realize it's a bit cramped. If you can share the microphones, we'll try to keep on top of that as we go. We'll start with the Uxbridge Township Mayor candidates, beginning with Dave Barton.
Wow, this is incredible. Anyway, welcome to this meeting, everyone. Special thanks to the Cosmos for putting us on, and to Ted Barris for being the ultimate moderator. My name is Dave Barton. I'm currently your Ward 3 councillor, and I'm running for mayor. I'm a fifth-generation Uxbridge resident. I was born and raised here. My wife, Sonia, is an emergency room doctor at Markham Stouffville, and we have a 9-year-old daughter, Indira, that attends Uxbridge Public School. I spent 18 years in the high-tech sector, where I worked for Tyco Electronics, and at Tyco I managed sales, engineering, and product management for about half of North America. And over the last 5 months, I've spoken to thousands of you, and the same concerns keep coming up. You want to keep the small town feel of Uxbridge. Well, so do I. You want to ensure that we have a hospital that meets all of our needs, of our seniors and our young families. So do I. You told me that our downtown needs help, and I've already been working on a vision to get us started. There's a flyer at the back with my parents, Larry and Donna. And then you told me that you're concerned about high taxes, and so am I. Our tax issue in Uxbridge is primarily a regional one, and as mayor, I'll be sitting at the region to assist with that. We are at a critical time of the life of our community. We have serious issues, and these have created some incredible opportunities. We need a mayor with experience, energy, and the vision to tackle the issues and exploit these opportunities. With your help, I can be that mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Now, Pat Malloy, please.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Ted, very much. Thank you again, Leisha, as well. My name is Pat Malloy. I've lived in Uxbridge for 30 years. I've served on over 20 community boards and committees. I understand the heart of our community. And when I look around this room, I see so many people in this room that have volunteered in this community, and that's why we have a great community. And it's a great time to thank you. It's so interesting. So many of the faces that we see tonight are the faces that we see around our community all the time, and thank you all for your help. So you've made a great community, and we have to keep it great. And here's a couple ways we're going to do that. Probably one of the number one priorities we have to concern ourselves with is our new hospital. In 2025, hospitals have to have sprinkler systems in them, and our hospital does not have one. It's a wooden structure, and it's 60 years old, and it has to be rebuilt. I'm on the Hospital Advisory Committee, and we've been working for the last 2 years with the province of Ontario, the local LHINs, and trying to get a process together in the Capitals branch of the Ministry of Health. So we are working real hard on it. We're pushing hard. We've had some great successes already. So inevitably, we're going to build a fantastic site there to take care of our community care. We'll probably have a medical center on the site in the very, very near future, and also we're working on a long-term care facility on the same site as well. So our hospital is safe, and we're going to make it better, and we're going to make it a real great example in the province. One thing that's interesting, I think, actually, one of the candidates said last week that this room has all gray hair in it, and you know, it really is true, isn't it? So that leads me to, well, some people don't have gray hair, but the reality is,
some of us wish we had some.
Well, and hair and period, I understand. But I think what's interesting is something that we have lacked in the last few years. And a couple of years ago, I started a committee called the Age Friendly Committee. And what we're trying to do is look around town and find out what we need as an aging community, what facilities we need, what programs we need. There's so many needs. An interesting thing came up in one of the retirement homes the other day, and they just talked about just crossing the intersection. The light's too quick. You need a little bit longer. They're not expensive fix, but we have to work with you and make sure that this is an age-friendly committee. So we have to work very, very hard to do that. 30 seconds, 2 minutes, I'm sorry, there's not much time. I have so many pages to go through here, I'm just not going to make it. But the reality is, I have a lot of experience. I've spent 8 years on council. I've spent all of those 8 years as chair of finance and emergency services. I've served the last 3.5 years as deputy mayor and the last 4 months as mayor. I know the job, I can do the job, and I thank you for your support.
Pat Malloy. Thanks, Pat. I'm sure, Pat, there will be ample opportunity for you to get into some of these issues, and you can pull out all 6 pages of those notes, okay? And our third mayoral candidate, Diane Reilly. Diane?
Thank you, Leisha, the Cosmos, Ted, and everybody for coming. What a wonderful group of people to come out and hear us tonight. I'm Diane Reilly, and I'm running for mayor. Tax was the #1 complaint at candidate meetings last election, but I don't feel the voters were heard. Uxbridge has 2 major projects go far over budget, the fire station and the culvert, which has just begun construction. It appears the practice of awarding to the lowest bidder just isn't working. Tax waste such as the $250,000 deposit lost on the fire engine and the fire station remaining unsold are 2 examples of things that are impacting our taxes. What action has been taken to fix the high regional tax portion? Why is Uxbridge subsidizing larger municipalities to the south? I will bring a totally different perspective to the way of doing town business. I love Uxbridge, and I want to see it retain its sense of community. I bring the role of strong leadership style and business experience. I work in a team environment with an open door policy. I believe that Uxbridge Council needs more transparency and accountability. The farm community is a significant reason that I love Uxbridge. I do not just support the farmers market and the farms because I'm running for this election. I have supported them ever since I moved here. I also shop locally. Why would I support big box stores when I can buy from local businesses? Other issues affecting the community are speeding, gravel truck brake noise at 4 a.m., and travel through town. Lack of services such as policing, limited transportation, not having a lower price grocery option, and how are we supporting our youth and young families? There are a number of issues that will happen under a changed leadership. We should be learning from the overdevelopment in surrounding towns and not making the same mistakes.
30 seconds.
I don't feel that approval of 216 townhouses is a positive step for Uxbridge. I strongly believe that when decisions affect residents' lives, they should be included in the solution. I have just not seen that happening. Our communities need to feel that they are included and receive proper attention, from lack of high-speed internet to lack of services. I am hearing that residents are feeling ignored. We have new candidates running for every position. Uxbridge needs a strong team to manage the challenges of the next 4 years. Get informed and return your ballot by October 22nd. Last election, we had a 50% voter return turn. I can see this time we're going to do much better. I will be the people's mayor and your voice on Uxbridge Council.
Thanks, Diane. Diane Reilly. And now to the regional council positions. First candidate is Gord Hyatt.
Good evening. Thank you for attending this evening, and thanks to Cosmos and Ted for hosting this wonderful candidate forum. My family has lived in Uxbridge for the last 18 years, and we are proud to call Uxbridge our home. We chose to raise our family here for the wonderful community feel and the amazing services that we all enjoy every day living in this amazing small town. I have the honor and the privilege to have earned the trust of Uxbridge residents, being elected as your Ward 5 councillor for the last 3 consecutive terms. Council has also appointed me the deputy mayor and the alternate Durham regional councillor. Through responsible leadership, thoughtful attention to detail, and just plain hard work, I have earned the council nickname of the voice of reason. In order to make responsible and informed decisions, I do my research, I consult with staff professionals, I evaluate alternatives and solutions, and I consider input from multiple perspectives before moving forward on an issue. I don't make unrealistic claims or promises, and I work hard for the residents and taxpayers of Uxbridge. Working together for a better Uxbridge is the cornerstone of how I work with you. Together, we will partner with Markham Stouffville Hospital and local healthcare providers to make sure that Uxbridge is well positioned to enhance and sustain our local hospital, promote the needs of our farmers, and ensure a viable internet solution for our rural residents. Work with seniors and residents with accessibility challenges to remove barriers to be fully inclusive for all. Press to implement the revitalization process of our downtown, control truck traffic, and create more pedestrian and active transportation-friendly streetscapes.
30 seconds.
Partner with Durham Region Police Services to increase safety. Work with business groups to attract new business and investment to our community. Champion Uxbridge residents to receive improved transit service, and capitalize on my extensive budget experience to attain best value for Uxbridge tax dollars at the regional and the local levels. Elect Gord Hyatt, Regional Councillor for Uxbridge, working with you for a better Uxbridge. Thank you.
Thanks, Gord. Gord Hyatt. Michelle? Michelle Vani.
Good evening. I would also like to thank the Cosmos for arranging this opportunity to tell you what I will do if I have the privilege of representing you as your regional councillor. My name is Michelle Vani, and I'm running to be your regional councillor, to be your voice on Uxbridge and Durham regional councils. I've been preparing to be your regional councillor since 2010. I took an active interest in the region, began watching regional council meetings, and was appointed to serve on a regional committee. Now, tonight you might hear a lot of numbers this evening, not only from me, but from some of the other candidates. But here's what you need to know. Uxbridge is paying more than half of every one of your residential property tax dollars to the region of Durham. You pay the highest percentage of your tax dollars to the region in all of the Durham region. You are paying a premium, but not receiving premium services, like policing and transit. Empty buses on our residential roads do not represent value for your tax dollars. The transit plan for the South does not work here. Let's change that. I will propose a transportation solution that works for everyone in Uxbridge, whether you live in town or in our hamlets. I will stand up for increased police visibility that you are already paying for. I will be the voice of Uxbridge, your voice on regional council. Over the last 12 years, you've experienced a 62% increase in the township portion of your property taxes. This is nearly 3 times the rate of inflation. In the last 4 years alone, your township property taxes increased more than 18%.
30 seconds.
Let's change that. I have a plan to keep more money in our township while providing the kinds of services residents need and are already paying for. I will be your voice on Uxbridge Council. You have told me that you feel that your concerns have not been a priority, that you're not consulted, and no one is communicating with you. Let's change that. I will listen, consult, respond, and communicate with you. You will be my priority as your full-time regional councillor. I will be your voice. A vote for Vani is a voice for you. I look forward to your questions and comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Michelle Vani. We move now to the regional chair candidates, and we begin with Tom Dingwall. Tom?
Hello, everyone. First off, I'd like to thank you for hosting this event and giving me an opportunity to speak with you tonight. I have not held political office. Some might see that as an obstacle, but I see it as a clear advantage. I owe no political favor, and I am indebted only to the people of Durham Region who have paid my salary for the last 26 years. As a member of the Durham Regional Police, I have policed in every municipality in one capacity or another, whether in routine patrol or while working in sexual assault and child abuse, homicide, or in my most recent assignment in professional standards, where I investigated allegations against my own officers and sometimes had to arrest my own officers. I have dealt firsthand with issues that politicians read about, and I have witnessed the struggles facing our most vulnerable citizens. I take on tough assignments, and I get results. Policing and politics have a lot more in common than you might think. Both are heavily entrenched in process and procedure. Both rely on leading large teams, and both are dependent on making evidence-based decisions. I have the demonstrated ability to take control of extremely chaotic and volatile situations, to separate emotion and find compromise and consensus. I have experienced diffusing situations and getting to the root cause of issues. Most of all, I treat people with respect and I listen. I am not a dictator or a bully. I respect women and people of all ethnic backgrounds. I know the importance of ethics and honesty. I've always fought for transparency, accountability, and fairness, and I believe past behavior is a predictor of future behavior.
30 seconds.
You have a real choice in this election. You can choose an establishment candidate who will maintain the status quo, or you can choose to allow someone with a clear set of transferable skills and a totally different perspective challenge the status quo. Given the opportunity, I will listen, I will ask questions, and I will move Durham Region in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Tom Dingwall. Next candidate, John Henry. John?
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Henry, and first of all, I'd like to thank the organizers for tonight's evening. I'd also like to thank the residents of Uxbridge who volunteer their time each and every day and for the great work they do in your community. And to all the farmers in the room, the 18,000 that work in Durham Region, I want to say thank you for feeding us and for what you do to make us a better place to be. And I know the struggles you have as small businesses because I come from the small business world. And as a young man, I was proud to say that I was one of the first Rotarians to be up here when your Rotary Club was chartered when I was with Whippy Sunrise. And I'm proud of my family history where my wife was one of the first pharmacists that was made an associate with Shoppers Drug Mart and worked 37 years. But more importantly, I'm proud of my daughter, Danielle, who worked for Heman Communications here for a year and a half before she went on to the school board in Peterborough. Or my daughter, who is a dentist in the Canadian Army, almost finished, and where her husband's now serving with NATO in Lafayette. This is one of the most amazing regions in all of Canada, and I am so proud to be the mayor of Oshawa for over 8 years and have been able to lead that city through some changes. But we have some challenges. We have challenges related to transit, policing, broadband, and we must work together to resolve those. And we've heard from the residents all over Uxbridge about the heavy truck travel that travels through your municipality. And we've heard at the doors about finding places for seniors to live. I'm proud to say that we have the first no-frills senior center in all of Ontario being built in Oshawa as we speak today, where seniors will be able to live there and pay rent and not pay for the services that they don't need.
30 seconds.
That in the bottom of that building, there'll be a partnership with Lakeridge Health to bring seniors care. There's an opportunity to create jobs along the 407 employment lands, and important to release the tolls on the 412 and the 418. And in 2019, I make this promise to all of you in the room, that we will hold town hall meetings to deal with policing and transit and work with your mayor and council so that you have a voice. On October 27th, please give me consideration. Vote John Henry.
Thank you, John. John Mutton. Candidate John Mutton.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the Cosmos and Alicia and Ted for hosting the event. I'm running for regional chairman because I care deeply about this region and the people that call it home. Durham hasn't even come close to realizing its full potential. We live in an incredible region which is diverse in its geography, economic potential, and the people who call Durham home. We need more and better jobs in our region. As a former rural mayor, I want to give the councils and residents of Uxbridge and North Durham the ability to choose what service level they want from the region and purchase the services like a services board. Uxbridge deserves its fair share from Durham region. I will deliver, and I have a plan for high-speed internet to Uxbridge and to North Durham, and I will lower the agricultural tax rates. Capital projects are going to be done on time and on budget, and Durham Regional Police will be accessible to Durham residents, especially in Uxbridge. I will repurpose dollars saved from the transit being moved to rideshare programs into other local services, giving the tax dollars back to Uxbridge residents. We need to cut taxes and create a stronger environment for people and business to flourish. We need to think outside the box, be innovative, and not to be afraid of trying new and better ways to do things. My platform focuses on 5 key points: lowering taxes,
30 seconds,
creating local jobs, creating safe communities, building better roads and transit, and delivering accountable, transparent regional government. I've worked hard for the people of Durham for the past 25 years, being mayor of Clarington, a regional councillor, a community volunteer, and a business owner. I commit to you that if elected, I will work just as hard to build the best Durham region with you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. John Mutton. We're anticipating we may yet see Mr. Neal this evening, and in the meantime, we will move on to the next candidate, and that is Mohammed Asan Sahi. Mr. Sahi.
Hi, good evening. It's Mohammed Sahi. I'm a lawyer, and I've been practicing real estate law for the past 3 years. I come from a small town. I am a farmer. I own a farm. I've worked on a farm, and I know that the best thing for a farmer's son is to get higher education, is to not to be a farmer again. And that I know for sure. So all this talk to keep people in the old ways, where they have been born, is an old-fashioned talk. We live in a society which transforms, which changes every day. So I invite you to think out of the box. Just to think of some of the changes which has happened recently, like the incentives for environmental friendly vehicles which were taken away. Who was most hurt? Those rural communities who were living farther from the city itself, those who had to commute. So sometimes politics is a game where they spin words to work against you, against your own interest. I'm here to invite technology, to invite science, to invite the new thinking to change our way of life. And that is a modern way of politics. And I think just to carry on my thought, we know that the taxes are huge here. Everybody knows that. We know that we cannot have New Durham with old politics.
30 seconds.
We know that if we change our course on inviting technology in policing, we can reduce our budget. We can reduce our policing budgets. Just think of Tokyo. They have run out of criminals just because they invited technology in their way of thinking. So I invite you to not vote for those people who would put you through the same path, who would invite you to the same way of life. I invite you to a New Durham. And that is my politics. Vote for me as chair. And I assure you that I'll decide everything science-based. I'll think through every decision, and I would not listen to the entrenched bureaucracy, which is huge, which pays itself with politics.
Thank you,
that is what they do.
Thanks, Mr. Sahi. Okay, I have an array of questions that I've received on paper, and one of them strikes me as an interesting way to start. It deals with accountability and the time frame within which each of you works over the period of 4 years to accomplish what you've set out in your policy statements and platforms and so on. The expression learning curve came up last week frequently about how long it takes for anyone representing public interest and in policy to accomplish things. How long is that learning curve? When can we, and I'm going to ask each of you to respond to this question, give you a minute or so to respond. When is it that we should say that the honeymoon is over and we should expect action on the things you believe in? Dave?
Excellent. I'm glad I had so much time to consider this, Ted. So,
I'll give you a minute and a half.
I believe we need to hit the ground running right away. I've got 3 years on council right now. I've communicated effectively with my residents on a daily, hourly basis, it seems. And the issues for Uxbridge can't be ignored. We need to start this right away. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Tom?
Sure. The benefit of having a lot of politicians on council is I will have a lot of support. Every municipality will have a mayor and representatives there fighting for the issues and fighting for the issues that are important to their local communities. So I will have a lot of support. I would expect that I will be able to hit the ground running fairly quickly. There's always a learning curve, but that's the good thing about having good people running each of our departments. If we've hired the right people in finance, if we've hired the right people in social services, if we've hired the right people to lead transit, I will have all the support I need to lead us in the right direction and start to make immediate changes, find the waste within our current systems. I have experience in something that most people on this table don't, and that is I've been in policing for my entire adult life. Policing makes up 1/3 of our budget. So I have a very good base to start.
John?
Thank you. Accountability starts the day after the election. Prior to being sworn in 2010 as mayor, we organized and took on the province on the completion of the 407 to the 115 as promised. The 407 is really a ring road around the city of Toronto that moves goods, people, and services. And I'm proud to say that we did that before any of us were sworn in. From a level of accountability at the City of Oshawa, the first thing I did was made my calendar public to every employee so that every employee had access to schedule a meeting with me when they needed to do that. I'm excited to say that during this campaign, part of my program is something we're already working on. Eliminating the tolls on the 412 and the 418. Making sure that during the last provincial election that energy, the global adjustment charges, and tolls were a major part of the conversation. That this job is about every day. There is no learning curve. You need to be able to start and run from day one.
Thanks, John. Gord?
Yeah. People elect members of council for a reason. They want representation. They don't want you learning on the job. So in other words, if you're not up to the task on day one, you really shouldn't be running. There were a lot of numbers, understanding operating, capital budgets. You'll hear some numbers bandied around probably tonight over various things, but you have to have a true understanding of what those numbers actually mean and where they are allocated to. It's fine and dandy to say that council's not doing the right job. Well, let's see the plan. How are you prepared to step forward and change that? So again, to repeat what I said, you have to be ready to be running day one. People aren't hiring you, which you are being elected to do, to be training on the job. They want results day one.
Pat?
Thank you. It's all about commitment. Everybody's different. You know, when you take this job on, we hear candidates every single election, they tell us that we're going to increase the service levels and we're going to lower taxes. Then when you sit down and you do the budget, you look at the numbers and you try to figure out how you're going to do that. It's not that simple. Every day you learn something on this job, but you've got to be committed to doing it. You've got to be willing to put the time in to learn. We have excellent staff in our township that do a great job advising us and keeping us up to speed with rules and regulations and legislation that comes to us all the time. So, yeah, it's not the first day. You learn every day. I've been on
when can we expect the sprinklers?
Well, I think, the legislation is before 2025, so it will be before then for sure. I can guarantee you that. We're working on it. We're going to get it done. Sometimes we actually do some things fairly quickly, too. I'll just tell you very quickly, when I became mayor, One thing that I missed in this town, I used to drive through this town all the time, you see a sprinkler or a fountain right in that electric light pond. And so what I did was I asked council if we could consider doing it, and we did it. So we got that done in a couple of months. So some timelines we do very, very well. We just got to make it happen a lot faster. Commitment is what it's all about. You got to be committed. John?
Thank you very much. Accountability starts immediately. I used to chair Durham Region's budget and Clarington's budget, as well as the chairman of Ganaraska Conservation Authority, and also the Ontario Nuclear New Build Council and Viridian Corporation. It has to start on day one. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to freeze the regional chairman's salary as office expense, as well as the regional councillor's salaries and office expenses. I decreased taxes in 99-2000 as chairman of finance and mayor, and by 1.26% across Durham Region, and I promise you I'm going to do it again. One of the other things, I'm going to deliver high-speed internet by the end of the second year to North Durham. We do have a plan in place, but we have significant policy that needs to be developed through Durham Region's official plan, which is going to be a learning curve, but a learning curve provided information that comes back from you, the community, and each of the different councils to help shape the future of Durham.
Thanks, John. That's great. Diane?
Thank you. I have had a number of jobs for small entrepreneurs, small businesses, where I've been the only resource for human resources, and I did hit the ground running. I am used to networking, finding good resources for information. No one has all the answers, and I am already building a network of really good people in town, people that are retired with lots of skills that I am getting information from to help me start this job right off. I don't believe in a startup time for such an important position. I think that we will have no problem getting back on track very quickly.
Okay, you realize the tape is rolling on all of this. All of you.
That's fine.
Mr. Sahi.
If experience was the only thing important for politics, then ethics and reason would have gone out of the window. It's basically, I've been blamed for being, having this cognitive dissonance, but I believe in changing views. And I believe that change is the only thing which is permanent. And the first thing which change requires is an open mind. When you go to, it's called for the judges, that they should have an open mind, because if you don't have an open mind and you have a preconceived position about something, then you cannot be innovative. And it's the taxpayers' money, actually, which is at stake. It is ethics. It's not rage. It is reason, which is more important. And I think education can give you gray hair sooner than you would think. Just think of Russia. We have created a country which is full of engineers who can build nukes and missiles, but they don't have liberal arts guys. So education of liberal arts, of democracy and human rights and new ethics is the way to govern our municipalities.
Thank you, Mr. Sahi. Michelle?
So I would argue that the job has already started. So a couple of months ago when I started walking around, knocking on doors, there were a lot of questions out there and a lot of issues that had not yet been resolved. So along the campaign trail, I've attended a land division committee for Zephyr residents. I helped to have some dead ash trees removed in Quaker Village. I have been fighting against the declaration of Donland Lane and Barton Farms as surplus. I've been dealing with parking issues in Mason Homes. So it already has started. And there just seems to be a dearth of issues out there that just haven't been addressed by the people who currently represent us. So it's already begun, and I'm accountable to you.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, I'm going to invite people to come to the microphone, and as they do, yes, please applause. They responded very well to that question right out of the blue. I'm going to invite the people who would like to pose questions to come to the microphone, and as they do, I want a very short answer from each of you on this question. It has to do with Uxbridge's strengths. Think for a moment, candidates, think for a moment about what you believe is an untapped strength in this community that's never before been explored that you feel would make a difference? We'll start at this end. Michelle?
Sorry, I guess that would be reverse order. I think our strength is our people. It doesn't matter where I go to community events. In our hospitals, we have people, in fact, there's someone sitting right in front of me who is a greeter at our hospital. Community events, people work for days and weeks and months to put on Canada Day events, historical society events. The list goes on, and I don't want to make an exhaustive list because I'll forget someone. But it's our people, absolutely.
Mr. Sahi? Our strength, this community's strength, untapped.
I mean, the strength is obvious here that we have a city full of people who want new food, you know, and we can grow new food here. We can be a hub of, you know, innovative cultivation. Like that is I think that is how we should think of it, of Uxbridge, and nothing else. We should not, we should not become people who repeat things. We should become people who change with the change which is out there.
Diane?
And
thank you. I did say a short answer, okay? Something untapped that we should now harness.
You may not realize it, but you have such a sense of community in Uxbridge. I came from a city which was once a town, and I've been through the overdevelopment. When you come here and people on the street say hello, they don't even know you, but they say hello. I was talking to Nan last week, and she made muffins for her neighbor. Like, you just have no idea. This community takes me back years when people actually talk to each other. We didn't text each other, we talked to each other.
So civility.
So your sense of community is awesome, and please don't lose it.
John?
I think that a sense of community and having such a wonderful voice for your community. I look at the turnout this evening. The people in Uxbridge are not afraid to voice their opinion, whether you like to hear it or not. And,
we'll see.
And they are tremendous at bringing that forward.
Okay, Pat? Something untapped that we've got to harness.
Well, fortunately, we have tapped a lot of things, and the one thing we have tapped and works so well for us is our volunteers in town. Our volunteers make this town happen. Every single event we do in this town relies on our volunteers. We see it every weekend. We see it today. We see it tonight. Every single thing we do, we love our volunteers, and thank God they're here.
Gord?
Yeah, I'll echo that sentiment on volunteers, but another point, I think that we don't give people credit enough that they can see through a falsehood. In other words, when all numbers are bandied around, Uxbridge people are smart people. Whether you live in a rural area, in the downtown, it doesn't matter. When I go to people's doors, they know what's going on. They said they're not sure on the election, and if it's a mail-in ballot, but they know what's going on, and they tell me straight, and I try and answer their questions as best that I can.
John?
Actually, you held an event not too long ago to recognize one great man in history, Colonel Sharp. It's about the commitment of the people from Uxbridge to our country. It's about what they've done. It was about companies of soldiers being formed throughout the entire region of Durham to come together to form the 116th Battalion, to defend the rights and principles that we here enjoy at home. I think that continues today in the service of the people within the community, and I thank you for what you do each and every day to help make Durham one of the greatest places to live.
Thanks, John. Tom?
Well, I think one of the things that I've realized in traveling all over this region, frankly, is the beauty of this area and the community, the sense of community. I don't think we've done enough to truly advertise and promote just how beautiful things are up here, and the trail systems, and to attract people to that and allow people outside of your community to see what it is that you enjoy each and every day.
Thanks, Tom. Dave? Gave you a chance this time to think about it.
And Ted, I appreciate it. Thanks. So, I actually agree with this entire panel.
Oh, come on.
No, but what that does for us, but what that does for us is it's created people in this community that want to give back. It means that Jennifer Wilson went to school and came back to be a doctor here. It means that Paul from Scarson developed Scarson here in Uxbridge. So when we are this community, people make this their home and give back in many different ways.
Thank you. Thanks for the quick responses, folks. Okay, we're going to go to the microphone now. And I did say you have to identify yourself, so. Are you getting faster at this point in your life?
I'm the old gray mare. I am the current regional chairman, and I am a resident, a long time resident, if not most of my life, resident of Uxbridge. And my question is, coming from sitting in the chair seat at the present moment, is that I heard, and this question is directed to you, John Mutton, is that you're going to freeze regional chair's salary and regional councillor salary. How do you plan to do that when you don't even have a vote on regional council without a tie or a recorded vote being requested?
Well, I think with a mandate from the public across Durham Region, and one of the things that I know every candidate has heard out there is the cost of taxes. We have to lead by example and show them that we do not need any more money in our coffers, expense budgets, and so on, if we want to show Durham Region fiscal responsibility. I know that I have one vote, but I will make sure that the rest of Regional Council have the opportunity to take a look at the numbers, and I believe that there's a very much a change vote that's going to be happening across Durham Region, and taxes are the huge issue.
I agree with you, but I'm just saying you don't have a vote unless it's recorded, or you don't have a vote unless it's tied. So you have to have 28 other regional councillors or 15 of them on your side.
Correct. And we did when we lowered taxes in 99-2000 by 1.26%, and you were there.
And I understand that, but that was local.
Does anybody else want to comment on this? Otherwise, we'll move to the next question. Mr. Sahi.
Yeah. I would like to say that I've been actually, they shouted when I said that I do agree with the municipal reforms at the provincial level. And I guess the reason is obvious now. We would have a chair who would not have the power. We would have a CEO without powers. So municipal reforms can only be structured from the province in the provincial assembly. We cannot become the flag bearers of municipal reforms. So that is why municipal reforms, I would agree with the legislature. And that is how we would have the power, and we would change whichever we want. So this is my thinking.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Thank you. I am Brock Clark, a long-life resident of Uxbridge Township and someone who has attended numerous Uxbridge Council meetings over the last 8 years. I have a comment, and then I have a question for Mr. Malloy. 2 Victoria Drive has been a hole for more than 4 years, and until Councillor Bryan advised at the council meeting of September the 10th that the work would begin last Friday, September the 14th, the project has been neglected completely. The Brock Street culvert was budgeted at an estimate of $10 million and was to begin in the spring of 2018. I spoke with a representative of Brendan Paving, and he advised me that their cost, that's their cost to the township, was $12.5 million. And as of this morning, I talked to Mr. Kester, there was no digging or dirt has been moved. My question for Mr. Malloy. You have been Finance Committee Chairman for the last 8 years and Deputy Mayor or Mayor for the last 4 years. Your literature, which came to my door, expresses experience and credibility. Please tell the taxpayers of this township where your experience and credibility has taken the taxpayers on the 2 projects which I have referred to, because I feel you have failed. Yes. I wait your comments.
First of all, I hope that flyer you got didn't come off somebody's door, by the way, Brock. Yeah, anyway, I'd be happy to answer some of those questions. The first one we'll deal with is First Lease Side for Victoria. That property, as you know, has gone through a number of different ownerships. It was through a bankruptcy in the United States. And we have been working with a number of different owners in that property. And as somebody just suggested the other day, yes, they've started digging there. It's actually quite noisy over there right now. We have got it going. It's rolling. They have all the building permits in place, and the building will be a 5-story building that we showed in the papers not that long ago. It'll be finished next year. As Chairman of Finance, you know, in committee, I actually don't even have a vote. So my job is to present the numbers to council. Council makes the decision. I agreed with all the decisions council made and all the numbers. In 2012, we had an estimate on the construction cost of the culvert. We had an environmental assessment done, and it was estimated at $10 million. We did another assessment in January of 2017, and the consultants told us it would come in at $10 million. In July of this year, we received the tender, which came in at $12.5 million. The difference is from $10 million to $12.5 million, and yeah, we're disappointed. But we've been going on information given to us by consultants, and we're going to deal with it. The additional money in the $17 million that you often hear is $1.8 million in a contingency that we've added to make sure that we know exactly where we're going to stand. One thing the consultants missed, and quite frankly, consultants don't have a lot of accountability. I'm sorry if there's some consultants in the room tonight, but it's difficult to get them to stand up for the information they give us. They missed the dewatering, which was $1.4 million. So the original cost of $10 million was a build cost. It didn't include getting properties. It didn't include some of the engineering. There were a lot of things out of that picture that weren't included in the very beginning.
Thanks,
the actual difference is $10 million to $12.5 million, and I'm as disappointed as you were getting that tender. We had information that it was going to come in at 10, and it didn't.
Anybody want to speak to that? Michelle?
Just a couple of points on both projects. So with regards to the culvert, I think the key here is transparency. If I can find out from the neighbors across the street what they bought and sold their property for, I don't understand at all why it is that it's not public information as to how much it cost to acquire the properties in order to allow this work to be done.
Just a sec, Pat. I want to invite other candidates who might want to, and I'll come back to you, Pat. Anybody else? Gord.
If I can answer that point, all that information is public. It's available on the township website. If not, it's available through Town Hall. You can go into the clerk's department and they will provide you with that. All the candidates in this election were provided with summaries for all the projects that the township is aware of or that the township is undergoing right now. If these candidates did not make themselves aware of that information, that's totally their fault. It's not the township. We are not hiding anything. So again, it's doing your homework before you open your mouth.
Anybody else? Just a second, Michelle. Okay, last two speakers, Pat and then Michelle. Yep.
Oh, great. I was going to say that very similar thing. It is public. If you want to know, it was about $700,000, and we didn't buy John Rodich's property. We paid him to rebuild the same square footage on the same site again. We did not buy the property. We don't own it. Michelle, to be clear.
So I'm going to quote from a message that we all as candidates received from the clerk. And my question was, now that the negotiations have concluded, whether or not the itemized costs for procuring the property, and I understand that we didn't purchase the land, but there was a cost associated with procuring the property and the move. And I quote, it says, "There are no plans to do a specific release of these costs," end quote.
Sorry, which property are you referring to in that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm speaking with regards to the property that the township acquired or required in order to do the project at the culvert.
Okay. Last response, Dave.
Yes. So there's public information if you dig deep into the township website, and then there's the type of information that we push to the public. And I feel what we've missed as council, and I've been part of this for 3 years, is pushing the exact data out and ensuring that residents understand and they don't have to look for the information. We actually provide it to them. And that's something I've been priding myself on that. And I speak mostly through social media.
Next question, please.
I'm a candidate for office. Is it ethical for me to ask a question?
As a civilian, he's quite welcome to ask a question at the microphone. A question, not a statement.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. In the opening statements, Mr. Malloy made reference to the grey hairs in the audience and to the fact that we're an age-friendly community. So that brings me down to the question of sidewalk snow removal. People who are of an age or who are physically disabled and cannot clear their own sidewalks are required to find someone to do it for them and pay them if necessary. And they already pay taxes, but now we're asking these people, if you can't do it yourself, pay somebody else to do it. And yet, as I understand it, the township is going to start this winter patrols to check, make sure our sidewalks are cleared in a proper and timely manner.
Question.
Okay, here's the question. If we can afford to have people patrolling the streets, why can't we afford to have these people shoveling the sidewalks?
Diane, you were applauding first. I want a response, please.
I walk into town a lot, and snow removal has been a big problem for me. I have seen snow removal on the town portion of sidewalks, and then the snow removal man in that little equipment goes onto the road. I don't see that there's a cost if he had stayed on the sidewalk and cleared it into town. We also have a lot of vacant properties. I can tell you personally that a lot of them do not clean the snow, especially number 28, which has been vacant ever since I moved here, and the snow is never cleared. So it's a hazard to people walking on the sidewalk, trying to shop downtown and support our businesses.
Pat, I think you nodded first, and then Dave.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we've looked at this for the last couple of years, and we're trying to get it done. It's going to be between $400,000 and $500,000 a year to do it. One of our concerns in doing it is we'll be able to do it once a day. We may not get around to it twice a day, but it's something that we want to do and we want to get it done. And with regards to lifting up the plow, our staff has been instructed when the plow's down, stay on the sidewalk and keep the whole sidewalk cleaned off. We've already done that. We've taken care of it. So we're trying to get it done, but it's a service that we have to pay for, and it's going to be about $500,000 to do the whole town, and that would include hamlets as well. So we're trying to get it done.
Dave?
This is a major issue. I've heard this over and over again at many, many doors. And it's three different parts. The one is the service level to our residents, especially when we were driving by with the plow up by their properties. The next one is liability. We own the sidewalks, and in the end, if someone has to trip and fall, we actually pay. It's us who gets sued, and it's typically us who has to pay the piper. And then number three, accessibility. We have kids that are walking to school. We have seniors with scooters and walkers that can't actually get by. This is a service that we need to provide. And again, when we own the property and we're liable and we're paying out lawsuits, we need to find a way to do this. And I've been speaking about this at council, and I've actually got a friend, don't judge me by this, who owns his own personal injury law firm. And he told me a long time ago that we're in big trouble if we continue down the path that we're going.
Thanks, Dave.
No problem.
Michelle?
I was going to speak to the liability issue as well, so I'll leave that since Dave covered that. But again, it goes back to the fact that you're paying a premium for taxes and you're not getting premium services. And not only just snow removal on sidewalks, but also for seniors and the disabled for their residential driveways. Oshawa, Clarington, Whitby, Ajax, Pickering all have snow removal services for seniors and the disabled. They all work a slightly different way, but we have none.
Next question, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lawrence, a recent arrival here. I'm a school teacher, and I would like to say to everyone here, I have never seen a turnout so large like this on curriculum night at our schools.
Welcome to Uxbridge.
My question to the three mayoral candidates is the following. Living formerly in Toronto, I can recall our former mayor, Rob Ford, who Wait a second. Wait, let me finish. Thank you. Who claimed that he would call his constituents or the residents or really depending on which ridings in Toronto, if they had a concern or if they had a question. So my question to the three mayoral candidates, if a resident, whether someone like me who lives in rural Uxbridge, and it's beautiful here, by the way, everyone, or a resident in town, and they have a question, whether it's by mail or whether it's by email or on the phone, I would like the three mayoral candidates here this evening to answer the following. if someone has a question for you, when can they expect a response? For example, within 24 hours, 48 hours, longer? Or would you have one of your delegates get back to the person? I'm just curious because I just remember back in Toronto that one of the, I guess, good points of our former mayor was that he would get back to people if they had questions.
Okay, mayoral candidates, your response, please.
Thank you.
Diane?
I can assure you that I will get back to you, and very quickly, unless you call me after 10 o'clock at night, then I'll call you the next day. I have kept in touch with employees for years and years. When they run into a problem, they still call me, and I help them. That's what I do. I do help people when they're in trouble. I actually am helping a neighbor right now that had an issue, and, you know, it's not my job, but I don't care. Helping people is what I love to do.
Okay, thank you.
Dave?
Now this is something I typically pride myself on. I get responses, especially in the last 4 months. I'm hearing from residents constantly. I'm getting hundreds of emails a day, and some I can quickly fix. Now, Lawrence, I went to Lawrence's door, and he told me that he had there was shoes over a wire, and he wanted me to call on Hydro One, and I forwarded it to staff, but it hasn't been done yet, and I need to follow up. We ran into each other at BNL 2 days ago, and it's, again, I've been a little bit busier than typical, and I need to get back to you, Lawrence. I apologize.
Pat?
I'm happy to say I already do respond within 24 hours. I'll give you a classic. Last night I got a phone call about 7 o'clock at night at the second concession and Wag Road. Somebody had stolen a stop sign. I answered that call, but the great thing is I phoned our works department, and within half an hour they had a new stop sign up. I answer all my calls all the time.
John, you got a comment?
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. One of the things, even at the regional level, with the amount of calls that come in, that we've put in our platform, that we are immediately going to implement across all departments a 24-hour callback standard from the regional chairman's office, respond to all emails within 48 hours, and an immediate response to written correspondence. So it's absolutely essential that the public know that we're there for them.
Thank you very much. Michelle?
First off, I wanted to say welcome to town.
Thank you.
Secondly, I wanted to say that that's the reason why I've committed to being a full-time regional councillor, because you deserve answers when you have questions. And so along the campaign trail, again, as I said, we've been solving issues as they've come up, and people have been receiving calls back within 2 or 3 hours. And that's when we're out of the doors and we're getting resolutions right away. So I think that's what the promise of being a full-time regional councillor is all about, is being accessible and accountable to you when you need your regional councillor.
Thanks, Michelle. John?
Thank you. And one of the things we've done in the city of Oshawa is we've implemented a program called Call Pilot Software. And Call Pilot Software allows you to leave a voicemail. And that voicemail, you can listen to it. And sometimes, you know, those messages can be really long, and it takes a long time to translate those into an email. But we're able to take that message, that voicemail, and transfer it to and send it anywhere in the corporation to get the appropriate answer back from staff. So we're actually able to use technology to advance the return of information. And as a matter of fact, almost all of us carry a device in our pocket, so you have instant access to us all the time.
Is that available to all councillors and
Callpilot
mayors?
software is available through the city, and if the township's interested, we will make sure that they know that that software is available.
Last point, Gord.
Yeah, just on that. Oh, there we go. Just on that last point, every member of council carries a smartphone. I get back to people within 24 hours if I have the contact information that I can reach them. The first time I contact them, I listen to what they have to say, I contact the appropriate staff person, and then they probably get a multiple call back depending on the situation. So.
Thanks, Gord. Next question, please.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
My name's Gary Supp. I have a question for the mayoral candidates. I believe Uxbridge has an excellent credit rating. Am I wrong in that? I sometimes think that part of the reason we're paying too much for some of our infrastructure and building costs is because we're waiting till we have all the money on hand rather than taking advantage of the credit available to us. I feel we would have paid less money paying interest than we're paying for the increased cost. Is there any thinking from any of you I'd like to hear from all three candidates about how you would approach the concept of possibly using that credit to our benefit.
Pat?
Answer that. We actually do debenture. We debenture at the rate of about 2.8% through the region. The region does 2 debentures a year, and we do debenture. We don't wait till we have all the money. We do finance our projects. The fire hall was financed down.
2.8%, is that correct?
I believe that's the regional rate for debenture.
2.8%.
I think it's a 15-year term.
Can you do better than that with your credit rating as a town?
I think the region is the region going as one large amount of money gets a very, very good rate. I don't believe we can do better privately, no. That's the information we've got. The region has a very, very good rate, and as you know, the region also has an extremely good credit rating. So, yeah.
But I misinterpreted your figures. Is that the percentage of budget that you use in a credit form, or is that the amount you take?
That's the interest rate on the debenture we do through the region.
Okay, but what percentage of expenses would you consider are in a debt mode as opposed to? How much do we borrow? How much have we borrowed this?
On the fire hall, we borrowed about $1.5 million.
Okay.
And on the downtown culvert, we might be in the range of about $4 million.
Okay.
And that'll be debentured through the region.
Okay.
Diane?
All right.
Diane?
I was just going to say, I know we're debentured for the culvert and the fire station. I don't have the figures because I don't have access to that information yet, but I know we're debentured on both those projects.
Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, this is something that's critical. We all know that costs continue to rise, and your point is very well taken that sometimes it's best to jump in, get the work done right away. The other thing to keep in mind, though, it's something like the pool. We've saved money for a number of years for a new recreation facility at the Fields of Uxbridge. With that, however, if we borrowed all the money, it would be a huge burden on Uxbridge. It would mean we'd have to borrow almost $10 million for that facility. Where if we get other levels of government like the province and the feds, then that's a much smaller portion, and that's better than borrowing money, even at the low rates that we experience.
John? It takes a second to catch up and move the pod up on the mic, so
kind of
just
like
be
me
patient.
too. Yeah, thanks. Being former chair of finance for the region have a AAA credit rating. They've always had one since inception. It's been one of the proud items for Durham Region. Uxbridge, as I know through the BMA financial study, have one of the lowest debt per capitas. They're very well off that way. They don't have a lot of debt. One of the areas of concern that I have for Uxbridge and the other areas within Durham Region is maybe one municipality comes forward that has $500 million worth of unfunded liabilities, and that municipality goes to the region to debenture because they have to fill the unfunded liability void within the next 8 years. That could cost us our AAA credit rating, making costs rise not only in that municipality but right across the region. So keeping that AAA credit rating is essential for us to be able to pay the lowest interest rate, and I do know that Uxbridge is doing well on that end.
Mr. Sahi.
Just one thing which I wanted to say clearly is that AAA rating has not come without a cost. The cost is obvious. We are exceptionally and highly taxed, and that brings a AAA rating. It's like IMF giving a loan to a broken country. So it's not a matter of pride that we have AAA rating on the backs of high rates of tax paying, higher rates of tax. So what is the better way of doing things? Just remember, when in America the debt crisis came, the small municipalities went bankrupt. So I would suggest a caution. And I think taxpayers ought to know that this Keynesian economics, spending more money, borrowing more money, is not a game. It has to be done with proper consultation, and it is not being done. Otherwise, we would not have the highest taxes, when we compare with other regions. So obviously, the old politics has failed, but nobody would tell you that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question.
Sorry, Ted, one quickie. I really only had the question for the 3 mayoral candidates, and it would have moved quicker. I didn't really need the responses from all the rest. Maybe we could get some of these other people's questions in if they limit the responders.
I'm sorry, your objection is what?
I asked the question of the 3 mayoral candidates
and you got them.
only. but then it continued on to all other representatives, and it just takes a lot of time.
I clearly indicated to the candidates that they wanted to speak to it, to raise their hand, and I'm simply responding to their wish to participate, which I think is perfectly legitimate. Bev?
Bev Northeast. My question is for the mayoral candidates in Uxbridge. What percentage of the township budget is given with grants from the province and the feds? If you could please answer that, I'd appreciate it.
Pat, sorry?
They can answer it. I'll answer last if you don't mind.
For Diane's microphone, please.
Yes? Okay. I don't have access to the town's finances, so I really can't answer that at this point.
That question is public knowledge. I phoned the office and I was told.
Okay.
Dave?
So there's a number of different grants, and it depends on the year. So depending on what projects we have, this year we've got 2.5 for the culvert project. We've got 2.5 from the feds, 2.5 from the province, 2.75 million from the region, and then the last portion is ours.
But that's a specific project, right? What normally comes in that assists this township with their budget?
I believe it's around 5%. I could look it up, though.
Thank you.
Pat?
Thanks. I just want to clarify one thing very quickly. The money we have saved for the pool is not from savings, it's from development charges from developers, okay? It's not money we've been stashing away using your tax dollars. It was important to clarify that. We get about $650,000 from the province of Ontario. There's two funds. There's the OCIF, which is the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, and there's the OMPF, the Partnership Fund. We get about $600,000 annually from the province of Ontario.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Bev. Next question, please.
Hi. My name is Ron Baumeister. I live since 1986 in Uxbridge. I love Uxbridge. I'm going to open a can of worms here. It's called bylaw.
You wouldn't be the first.
We had only one bylaw officer called Blaine, a very respectable person. Now we got 4 in Bhutans and then in body vest, and I hear from, including myself, a lot of residents live in fear here. And we are a country of freedom and, free expressions, and a lot of property owners feel in fear. Now, in 2002, I believe Uxbridge voted with a provincial guideline that a lot of people don't even know, that a bylaw officer can come anytime, anywhere on your property. You don't even have to be home. A policeman is not allowed. My brother is a policeman. I respect policemen.
And your question?
I actually have 2 questions.
Let's start with one.
Oh, okay. My question is to all the mayor candidates, and I'm starting with Dave Barton. You give me your opinion last year, and I respect that, but I'd like to know if your opinion is maybe changed, that we should stand for the rights of our citizens and for the high-paid property tax owners, that they can't just barge in.
I'm sorry, Ron, you're making a statement. I think it's appropriate to ask a question.
Yeah, I'd like to know if your if you are changed with your statement, and I'd like to know if you maybe can review that and maybe have a referendum that people can vote if they should be allowed in all the candidates.
Okay. So the further outside of urban Uxbridge you go, the more we hear about bylaw and the fact that they have an awful lot of power in Uxbridge. What I feel we need to do is take a really good look at all of our bylaws and ensure that the ones that we're enforcing are the ones that really matter and really affect the neighbors. So we obviously need a bylaw department. It's critical. We have lots of people that break the rules, so we need a bylaw department, and they have to be able to enforce the bylaws of the town. But when we overstep in creating bylaws, like just Roger brought up the throwing balls in the park and things like that, we need to make sure that our bylaws make sense, that we don't overstep our boundaries, and that whenever possible, we go in soft with our bylaw department, that we don't go in hard, we don't intimidate, because I know, Ron, you and I have spent hours discussing things.
Not hours, but anyway.
I think we have. Anyway, Ron and I have spent lots of time discussing this, and I do understand your issues.
But we, as a property owner, some property owners get treated like criminals.
Okay, you've made this point several times, and I think that's
Yeah.
fair, but I think it's important that the candidates respond. Pat, and then Diane, please.
Mr. Baumeister, I'm going to be really direct. You have a marijuana grow operation on your property. You have a permit that was issued expired in 2014 from a doctor in British Columbia. On your property, the police had to attend your property because there were people shooting guns on your property last year. And I would suggest to you that if you talk about respect for your neighbors, I know from your neighbors, they're the ones living in fear right now.
Diane?
Well, some of my neighbors did it illegal. I do it legal.
I don't agree.
May I respond, sir?
No,
May I respond?
I want Diane to have a chance to
No, but hold
respond.
on.
She's a candidate. Excuse me, this isn't a debate between the two of you. It's you asked a question. Diane?
I also don't feel that residents should live in fear. However, when there's being gunshot on your property, you know, your neighbors should not live in fear either. It's very important that everybody feels safe, not just one individual.
Any other candidates wish to respond to this? Tom? No? Okay, thank you. Next question, please. Next question, sorry. Yep.
Hi, my name is Gary Ruona, and I'm a candidate for council in Ward 2. Am I allowed to speak?
Only if you have a question.
Okay. Taxes are always the main issue. I've been down to the region head office on 2 occasions, and I've met with almost every department down there. And my question to each department was how many of our tax dollars are apportioned to your particular department, and not one department could answer my question. So I find it incredible that this information isn't available.
So you want someone within council currently to give you an answer as to how much money is apportioned to each department?
No, they don't know, and the departments at the region that I've spoken with don't know either.
So your question is? My
question is that I find it incredible that that information is not available.
That's not a question.
How can we do our How can we do our due diligence if we want to do something on our own or partner with Brock and Scugog, opt out of a program if nobody has the information as to how much money is spent?
John.
I'm not sure if they gave you this information
yes,
regarding
I've
the
seen
percentages.
That, but it doesn't. It doesn't clarify.
And just in the regional budget, I know because I read the regional budget.
What's the document you're holding, John? I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
The 2018 property tax supported budget and services highlights, and you'll also get quantified numbers of each department and sub-department within that department as well.
None of the departments was able to give me that information.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
That's unfortunate. Yeah.
Dave, and then Michelle, and then Pat.
Okay. So I get made fun of a little bit on council because I'm a bit of a spreadsheet geek. So what I put together was a list of where you basically type in your impact value and it tells you where every dollar goes. So it lets you know that your impact value is $500,000 and the policing cost is this, the transit cost is this, our trails cost us this. So if anyone ever wants to have that information, give me your impact value and I'll tell you where your dollars are being spent.
Michelle?
So I actually also pulled out the same thing, so great minds think alike. So $27,804,212 went from Uxbridge dollars to the region of Durham. So what I did is I just simply extrapolated the percentages here and just assumed it was the same. So some of the large line items are $5 million roughly for police. If you look at transit, it's about $2 million. Another major line item is social assistant at 10% at $2.8 million. Roads and bridges about $4.3 million, and that's all Uxbridge dollars.
Pat?
Okay. I understand your frustration, Gary, because some of it, we are part of the Durham region. There's no question. And if you take situations like policing, for example, when we had the murder here in our town a few years ago, that required 100 police to deal with that one case. But they're not here every day. Well, there's not very many of them here every day, quite frankly. But so it is difficult to allocate that. We have to pay for a whole police department. We may not use it, but we have to pay for it. Same as with our public health department. We have to pay for a public health department. We may not use it lots this year. We may use it more next year. We're part of the Durham region, and I understand your frustration, but I can also understand how difficult it is to be very specific on some of those larger dollars, because we've asked as well.
Could I just interject here and ask a question that may be on the minds of some of us in the room? How are those percentages of the money that you each claim is going to the region decided? Who decides that? Is that the township council, the regional council, or the province?
It's the regional council.
Okay,
they do their budget, and the region is the region. We all pay the same tax rate at the region. Our assessments vary, but we all pay the same tax rate, and it's based on the regional budget.
And so those of you who would be representing us on that council would have a say. How would you respond to the question that he's posed? Tom?
Sorry, how would I respond to? I thought his question was the breakdown of the percentages.
But there was some discussion about the way the percentages that seem to disappear into that flow of money going to the region.
Well, absolutely. And I think the biggest issue that I've heard up here, and quite frankly, in Brock, Uxbridge, and Scugog, is that you're paying for services you don't receive. Policing, you're obviously paying for policing, and you very rarely see them, but you see them when something happens. And unfortunately, we're being reactive, and we're turning into high-priced report takers. We need to have a presence up here. Your transit, the same thing. There has to be a reassessment done as to what you're paying for and what you're receiving. And I think that's the only fair way to do it. I think we need to take a real hard look at this and have an honest discussion.
I believe we send about 59% of our tax dollars to the region. I think Oshawa sends about 43%. As I've said on a few occasions, we're the golden goose and we're getting plucked.
John, you had a comment?
Yes.
John had a comment.
One of the things that I think it's very important that we clarify this time around with the region is we bring in an Auditor General and we actually can show Uxbridge, Brock, Scugog, Clarington, everyone exactly what they pay for what services at the region. And then we can do a mandated and non-mandated services review in order to find those savings in order for you to be able to purchase the services that Uxbridge need for Uxbridge, and not the other way around of being forced by the city of Oshawa or someplace else in the Durham region to pay for their services.
Thank you, Gary. Well, have to move on. Sorry. You got some responses there. Thank you. Next question.
I'm Jan Wilson, and this is part 2 of Gary's question because he asked the exact same question, but I'm curious. I want to know a little bit more. This is, as you see, and as it's been alluded to several times tonight, an old community. Well, the community, the people in it. Sorry, folks, I'm with you. If we are paying 59 cents on the dollar to region, where Oshawa, with a much larger population, is paying 41 or 43, exactly why? Why are we paying 18 or whatever, 16, 17, 18 cents per dollar more for region? We all know in this room the phrase, south of the ridges, and we all feel that it's bye-bye. Good luck, Oshawa. Can you answer why the difference? We're all in this region together. We're all neighbors. Can't we be good neighbors and share it?
Thanks, Jan. Dave?
So it's correct. We all pay the same percentage of our home value to the region. So in some ways, we all pay the exact same amount. The problem in Uxbridge is twofold. One is the Durham regional taxes are about 73% more than York. The other big problem that we have here in Uxbridge is that our property values are some of the highest in the region. And that's why we're paying 83% more per person in Uxbridge than they do in Oshawa. It's because our home values are high.
Percentage.
And it's because our home values are more expensive than those in Oshawa.
Somebody had a Pat comment? Oh, sorry, Dave.
Oh, no, I didn't quite finish.
Beg your pardon. Sorry. I'll give you a couple more seconds.
So the point here is we need to make sure that we're getting the best possible value for our tax dollars from the region, and we need to constantly remind the people of the region that we need our percentage, that we're being very heavily taxed, and we need to get value for those dollars.
Pat,
Just,
and then John?
If you don't mind, I think some of these comparisons, I think you really need some of the facts behind them. Oshawa has 165,000 homes. Uxbridge has 8,000 homes. I don't think you can compare those two situations together. It's not unlike comparing us to Toronto. When Toronto sends a snowplow down the street, they do 40 homes. Many of our streets, they do 3. Those are the things that affect our taxes. But that percentage that they use all the time is really not apples to apples. We have much different communities. I mean, like I said, the 165,000 homes in one community compared to 8,000 in another really isn't comparable. So it's really it's a matter of quantity. If we're still plowing a street and we're doing 3 houses or 4 houses every half mile, and Toronto's or Oshawa is doing 40 of them, it makes a big difference in the cost.
John Henry?
Thank you. Just 2 parts, 2 answers to your question. So today when I left, I wanted to calculate or have a number for you to talk about what's being invested in roads in Uxbridge to the region. So there's $5.5 million that was budgeted in this year's budget. $2.5 million went towards rehab and road construction, $2.5 in regional funding towards the ongoing Brock Street culvert, and $500,000 towards the water main. The mill rate in Oshawa is 1.4. The mill rate in Uxbridge is 1.07. When General Motors comes in and they get they want to apply for discounted taxes, the city of Oshawa pays a full 40% of that, and then we pay a full one-third of that discount again at the region. So sometimes when you look at the balance, it's a little bit different. But the taxes in Oshawa, and I know taxes are high, and mayors of all communities are responsible for debts that are created by other mayors, but I am ultimately responsible for everything. That the people in Oshawa pay $12,663,000 on a house valued at $900,000. A house valued at $900,000 in Uxbridge, you pay $9,719.
Any other thoughts? Sorry. Gord.
Thank you for taking the words out of my mouth, John. Jan, just to answer your question, if you look at a pie chart, which seems to be the flavor of the month going around, if you look at Uxbridge's pie chart versus Oshawa's pie chart, the reason our percentage looks higher is because Oshawa, and no offense to the mayor, pays more in local taxes than we do here. So the breakdown of the number that you were just quoted of 12,000, Oshawa is paying $5,900 in local taxes, in other words, to the city of Oshawa. Uxbridge, you're paying $2,400. So that's why it looks like that pie chart is skewed towards paying more to Durham Region, when in fact it's the total breakdown of the amount of tax that you're paying.
Thanks, Gord. Dave, and then Michelle.
Yeah. So what I said during my opening statement, I talked about how our tax issue is primarily a regional one. Again, I put all the numbers together and compared us with all of our competitors or neighbors, and we're in really good shape in Uxbridge. Our local taxes are less than Brock, less than Skugog, but again, because our home values are so high here, that's why we're getting hit really hard.
Michelle?
Go ahead.
You made that point earlier, so I'd like to move on.
So, on the back of my literature, which is available at the table, 59 cents of every single dollar that you're paying is going to the region. 16 cents is going to education. And the remaining 25 cents stays here in the township to do the township's business. This is not a matter for interpretation, it's a matter of fact. Everyone in the region, essentially, because Oshawa and Whitby have their own waste removal contract, is paying essentially the same mill rate, which is the budget over the total amount of the assessments in that particular area, whether it's in the township of Uxbridge or in the region. And when multiplied by our property values, which are higher, and I have the information here from MPAC, this is from your 2006 reassessment, Uxbridge's are $540,000. That's what an average single-family home assessment is as of the beginning of 2017. And if you compare that with Oshawa, it's $356. So that's the reason why it's higher.
Thank you for that question. Next question, please.
I'm Tammy Murphy. I'm running for Ward 5, but I am asking this question from a citizen standpoint.
Okay, I'll keep careful watch over the way you pose it.
This question is for Gord.
Okay.
Because I am running for Ward 5, I'm privy to information from the residents that the rest of town may not be aware of. One of the primary complaints that I have heard when I've gone door to door, and I've gone to about 90% of them now, is that they've contacted our councillor and have received no response. Multiple times from multiple people.
Okay.
So
Your
knowing
question is, please?
Knowing that, why should I entrust my vote to you as regional councillor when you can't even handle a ward?
Well, thank you for the question. As I stated earlier, I do respond to people if I could get through to them. I'm not sure who you talk to. Maybe we can talk afterwards and you can give me the specific names and we will get to them. Okay? I mean, generalized statements like that, Ted, are
I understand.
Totally, you know.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Good evening, everyone. I've got a couple questions, real quick. One for the mayorals and one for the regional.
Could we have
council.
your name, please?
Oh,
Sorry.
My name's Matt Ottenhoff, longtime Uxbridge resident.
And could we have one question, please, Matt?
Yeah, I'll meld them together real quick.
Yeah, just one question.
Well, it's more of a comment than it. So my one question for the mayors, which is really quick, is a very simple one, is we live in a beautiful town, and yet we let ugly buildings happen. And I think the fire hall is a beautiful example of that. I'm not against the fire hall, but if we look at other communities, such as Oshawa, if anyone's been to North Oshawa, they have a beautiful fire hall, and we have this industrial building that welcomes the residents to Uxbridge. I think we need to take a little bit more pride in our architectural ability. So I'm asking the mayors how they would handle not having just a random style of building.
Can I perhaps paraphrase the question and put it this way? How do we make things functional and yet attractive? Okay, how's that?
Cohesive.
Fair? Tom, you're nodding. You go first.
He's asking the mayoral candidate.
I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. We'll start with the mayoral candidate, but you did seem eager to respond. Diane, and then we'll get to the others.
I totally agree with you. There are other areas that have put new construction up that looks historical. So when we take a historical area in town, we should be building to an historical looking design. I don't think we should be putting industrial design.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not worried
so
about what people think.
Okay.
How do you implement something that functions? It's
Zoning.
like,
Zoning.
So it's actually more of a comment than-
If we put the zoning in that the design has to be historical, then whoever owns the property has to follow that historical framework.
Pat, and then Dave.
It's the same old question. How much money do you want to pay? In Stouffville,
that's
it's
absolutely
interesting.
not
It
true.
is. I'll tell you an
It's
example.
absolutely not true because
Stouffville's
good design
doors-
doesn't
Matt,
cost
just a
more.
moment. Would you let him
Good
do
design
something?
doesn't cost more.
The
Absolutely
doors
not.
at the new Stouffville Fire Hall are $600,000 more than doors in our fire hall.
Yeah, and I
Well,
can
those
tell you
are
lots
decisions-
about the fire hall
Sorry,
that
are
we
we-
built there all of a sudden. So
Matt,
don't tell me that design...
excuse me, Matt.
Anyway,
You have to let the man respond
just
to your
telling
question.
You.
But
we
facts are
would
facts.
love to.
I'm in the building industry. I
And
know the
that's
difference
fine.
between
I
good
wish we
design
could
and
debate
bad
up here like
design.
that.
But you have
So
to
don't tell me that good design
Excuse
costs
me, Matt.
more.
I'm going to cut you off,
Okay.
I'm afraid.
Okay, I'm done. I just have my regional question. My
I'm
regional
sorry.
question...
Excuse me, just a second. You posed the question to the mayoral candidates.
Sorry, I'll let you finish.
I'd like them to respond, and then I'm sorry, going to have to cut you off. There are a lot of people waiting for other questions.
Sorry, if I could just finish. In the new Stouffville Fire Hall, we looked at all of those design features, and we obviously take great pride in our fire hall, and we tried to build the nicest one we could. But it's also money, and as I said, in Stouffville, those doors alone were $600,000 more. So those little design things, as some may suggest, can be very, very costly. So we tried to work as closely as we could with our budget. We went over our budget even after that with the site alterations, but we tried our very best to get the most functional, as good looking as we could get it, and that's what we got. And I'm pretty proud of the facility.
I'd like to open it up to the... I think Matt's question is...
My actual
Matt,
real
excuse
question
me.
is for the
Sorry,
chair.
I'm going to cut you off. Unless you please stop. I'm not going to pursue the question line, which is attempting to get you an answer.
Yep.
All right? I think it's only fair that the mayoralty candidates complete their answers. I can't remember now whether, Dave, you had a chance. And then I think it's fair to ask the regional council candidates and the regional chair candidates, how do we amalgamate attractiveness with functionality? Because all of that money is going that direction.
No.
Dave, please.
Okay.
So the downtown is very near and dear to my heart. And what has bothered me is when we put in more utilitarian buildings, things like the new post office versus the old. So I've got a vision to ensure that the new buildings that replace things like where the Shell station was moving forward, and that's probably going to happen within the next year, that they fit in and complement the downtown core. For the most part, the design of the building does not significantly add to the cost. Sometimes with doors for a fire hall, that could be different, but for the most part, a beautiful building and a not so beautiful building costs the same amount of money.
Would any of the other candidates like to comment? Mr. Sahi. Mr. Sahi.
There are two things. One is functionalism, and the other thing would be the romanticism. Of course, the taxpayers' money should not be spent on the romantic needs of the constituents. Basic issue is whether it is functional or not. First, and if the functionality is cut down with the romantic aspect of putting some arches which are not functionally suitable for that purpose, then we shouldn't be doing it, because we are held accountable for the money which we collect. And that should be the only criteria, and I think that is what designs come out of.
Anybody else? Sorry, Gord?
If I can paraphrase your question, you're looking, does the township have the ability to do architectural control on the exterior of a building? Is that what you're saying?
Sure, yeah.
When every new development comes to the town, we have what's called a pre-consultation meeting. We sit down with all the parties involved, the region, the Lake Simcoe Conservation. We go through their proposals. And at that point, we kind of talk about the aesthetics of the building. What are they proposing? What are they looking to do? And so we work with them to create something that's visual appealing. Can we dictate to them what they need to do? No, because you're setting a standard, I guess, based on someone's premise. So what they do in Port Perry is they have a historic district, which allows them to, they have to conform with the historic facade on the outside of their store. The township has a community improvement plan, which is monies basically available to a store or building owner that they can use to retrofit the front of their building to make it more visually appealing. But we don't have to say that you have to be Edwardian or Victorian or postmodern. We don't have guidelines to tell people what they have to do.
Right. John Henry?
Okay.
The building that you
Michelle?
were referring to is Fire Hall number 6 in Oshawa, and that building was specifically built to look like a barn to support two of the greatest entrepreneurs in the history of this country. It was the McLaughlin family that started the farm, and then the Taylor family that continued.
Yeah, I was using it as an example.
But we did, and we saved some of that history, and we put it within the fire hall because people come to the fire hall to visit firefighters. Right. It was a great project, but not only that, we saved some of the hardware that was related to the lands, including the fences, and we repurposed it around the graves of Northern Dancer, which will be permanently set.
Right, which is great and I like how you talked about saving, because my follow-up question to the regional
I'm sorry,
councillors-
Matt. I'm going to have to ask you to...
I'll just leave it. They don't have to answer my
No,
follow-up
I'm
question.
sorry, but Michelle had her hand up to speak to your question. I gave you one
Michelle?
question, and Michelle has a response.
Oh, sorry.
And then we're going to move on. Michelle.
Well, actually, I mean, I'd like to hear from him if he wants
My
to
regional
say something.
question
He
is
clearly
we talk
has-
about the tax rate and we talk about all the taxes. My question for the regional councillors to consider, you don't have to answer it, this is just to think about and consider. And I like your smirk, Pat Malloy. I have a legitimate question here, and it's about the tax rate and the money that we spend, that we send to the region. What are the regional councillors going to do, or in their plan, to address the high tax rate with money and expenditures to policing and regional works? How come when I drive by, and I'm sure I'm going to drive by in October, I see 6 guys setting up a row of snow fencing with 5 trucks that I could do with my crew with 2 guys or 3?
Thanks, Matt. We're going to have 2 responses, one from Gord, one from Michelle. We're going to move on. Okay. Gord?
Well, I would hope, I can speak for myself, and I'm hoping I can speak for the other regional candidates, which includes the mayors, that we're all going to the region for one purpose in mind, is to get the best bang for the buck for Uxbridge. Now, whatever that may entail, we're not quite clear on yet, but I will be pushing for more police presence for number 1, and getting a better pie chart, if you want. So I think we're all here for that reason. If we're not, I'd like to hear from the other candidates.
Michelle?
Well, thank you very much, Gord. So one of the things that you didn't mention in your question, I'm sorry, I've lost the question asked. Oh, hello. So one of the things that you didn't mention is transit. Right, and in my opening statement, I talked about the fact that we have empty buses running down our street, and we pay $2 million of Uxbridge money every year. If you just extrapolate the 8.6% over of the total that we send, and I don't think that represents good value for the taxpayers of Uxbridge. So one of the things that I propose to do to get a better deal is to, let's say, opt out of the regional transit plan that doesn't work for the north. It may work for Oshawa and folks in the south, but it doesn't work here. And look at making a made in Uxbridge solution, whether or not we look to Innisfil and look at the ride sharing programs that they've implemented where they've saved a ton of money. I just don't think that if you look at a per passenger fare at over $200 per trip, it's just not good value for taxpayers' money here in Uxbridge.
Next question, please.
Hello, my name is Lee Fisher. I moved here 8 years ago because we've been using the trail system. And this question is for the mayors. It may also involve Durham Region. We're known as the Trail Capital of Canada. And I'd like to ask you, how do you envision the role of Uxbridge in supporting the creation of a safe, usable network of trails with regards to tourism, maintenance, volunteers, and bringing people to our local businesses?
Start with the mayoral candidates, go from there. Pat?
We're there? That's a great question. We are the Trail Capital of Canada, and some of the concerns council has had in the past few years is that our trails may not be safe. We had a couple of years ago a 25-year-old that had a heart attack, and he was 3 kilometers inside the trail. But we don't have the ability yet, and it's something we have to work on to make sure that when people are in there and they're distressed or in trouble, they have to know where they are. So our trails, first of all, have to be safe. Secondly, when you're going onto our trails, you have to have somewhere to park. So we're going to be the Trail Capital of Canada. We want to have the best trails in Canada. And right now, the council's decided we're not adding any more trails until we've dealt with the ones we've had and make them as best as they can be. So that's the position of council right now, and I agree with it 100%. They have to be safe.
Dave?
Yeah. Our trail systems are absolutely incredible, but we can do better. We've got about 100,000 people that come to Durham Forest and Dagmar and the Walker property to use our incredible trail systems, but there's no bathrooms. There's no outhouses. There's almost no way for people to, let their little girl go to the bathroom somewhere. That's a big issue. The other issue that we've been working on together is if someone happens to fall in the middle of the forest somewhere, up until 3 months ago, our poor firefighters had to carry a heavy stretcher in all the way into the, 2 kilometers into the bush with all their gear, and the 25-year-old that Pat was talking about, they had to carry him out, perform CPR on a stretcher while they're carrying it. It's totally ineffective. It didn't work. One thing that I did, oh, he lived, sorry.
Rumors of his death were very highly overstated.
Yeah, so he's still alive. Sorry about that. But, and some of our incredible firefighters actually got a lightning bolt award for keeping him alive. But despite that very complex rescue, there wasn't a solution until the Durham Mountain Bike Association came to me. I went to our firefighters and got wheels for a stretcher, about a $2,000 fix that they've been working on in Uxbridge for years. And it's not the best solution, but it finally works, and we've had great feedback from our fire department.
Diane?
I think the trails should be safe. People have cell phones now, they can call for help. It's nice that Dave took the initiative and got that piece of equipment that they can get into the trails easier if someone is hurt or falls. I know we have a huge network of volunteers who clean the trails, and the dog strangling vine is a big problem in the trail system. So we have to work together to get these invasive plants out of the trails so that people feel safe walking.
Tom, did you want to respond?
Yeah, unfortunately, everybody.
Tom Dingwall.
Unfortunately, everybody's spoken about most of what I wanted to say. You have 220 kilometers of trails, and it's great that you have the most trails, but it's more important that you have the best trails. We need to invest make sure that they're accessible. Obviously, if someone's on the trails and they do get hurt, EMS is imperative that they be able to get in and know where people are. If the trails are marked properly, they can notify where their locations are. And obviously, washrooms and parking, imperative. Without a place to park, you're not going to be able to attract the people here that are then going to come into your communities and enjoy meals and coffee and have the spin-offs that would benefit everybody in the community.
Michelle? Michelle?
Sorry. Hello? Oh, there we go. So you're absolutely right. Our trails are a huge tourism draw. And when we invite people into our town to use our extensive trail system, we want them to stay and to patronize our local businesses and maybe even stay overnight. Unfortunately, we're lacking a hotel. And I think this is a big miss. In fact, I attended the regional council meeting I guess it was probably about 6 weeks ago now, where this exact issue was debated. And there was a proponent who was looking to put in a 64-room hotel in Scugog next to the Walmart. And they were looking for a break on their development charges. I'll try to be brief, but it's a $7.7 million project. They had done a similar type of project in Aurora. They got a significant tax break from York Region and the town of Aurora. And they were looking for some consideration from Durham Regional Council as well. So of the $7.7 million project, the development charges alone were over $700,000. And unfortunately, they just got shut down and not even to look at it. And I think that this is a really big miss. It would have been a great opportunity for First Leaside to have a small little boutique hotel. Maybe there's still an opportunity with regards to the fire hall.
Okay, Michelle, that's off topic.
Sorry?
We started with the trails. We're getting down another route here. Lee, thanks for the question. Next question, please.
My name is Eleanor Todd. I've lived in Goodwood since 1955. Goodwood is in Ward 1. I probably should use, since I've got a microphone here, I probably should use this as my last pitch to save the little township hall in Goodwood, which council had, which was being used right up until last spring when council evacuated our, pardon me, our Lions Club. But that's not why I'm here. I was at last Monday's all candidates meeting, and something really, it's been bothering me all week ever since. It was about a project being started near Goodwood, Ward 1, and the two candidates for Ward 1 addressed it.
What was the project, so that everybody knows?
Something to do with grain elevators. I'd never heard about it before. It was. Okay. That's not my problem. You're my problem, Mr.
I'm your problem?
Barris, you're my problem.
Well, I'm not up for election. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Would you like to pose a question, Eleanor?
You were the moderator, and after the two ladies spoke, you said, well, that's a Ward 1 problem. We'll move on to another question. And I said to myself, what? A Ward 1 problem? Ward 1 is in Uxbridge. It's an Uxbridge problem.
Fair comment.
And then,
did you have a question?
Yes. Well, I have one more example because it brought back to me.
Well, I think you obviously have a concern about this particular project. Can you phrase a question for any of the mayoral candidates to respond to, please?
I would like the candidates who used to be Ward 1 or ward councillors, that was their learning curve to bring them to where they are today, running for mayor or regional councillor. I would like these experienced people to tell me how a ward councillor operates within the council system. Do they have a full voice, or do they have to sit back and just speak to the problems in their own ward?
Okay, Pat, thanks for saving me. Go for it.
They absolutely have a full voice. As a matter of fact, the mayor doesn't have a voice. The mayor doesn't have a vote unless it's a tie. So they absolutely have a voice. And that issue, the grain boys elevated the grains. They're producing grains from all around the world they're trying to on a site there. So we have a lot of questions about that, and we're not ready to say yes. And your ward councillors are investigating as best they can. They've been to other sites, they're looking it up. They have an absolute voice. It's usually up to them to do most of the research, and they discuss it with the rest of council, and they do a very, very, very good job in it. We have a few more questions on that site, so we're still waiting on an answer. Dave?
Yeah, and I agree with Pat on this. The experience that I've had as a ward councillor has been critical to what I'll bring to the mayor's chair. When we have a situation like the Grain Boys application, the initial meetings are with the ward councillor, and that's the best time to get the full picture. What we have to do as we're sitting at the council chambers is ask enough questions by reading the reports and by talking to the people in the meeting to find out what the issues could be. And what I always did as a ward councillor is I would look at where the facility was and then search around to see the most affected neighbors and ensure that I went and spoke to them. And that's how I always did it, and I will continue doing that as mayor.
Gord, I think you're eligible to speak here.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you for the question, Eleanor. As a ward councillor, yes, your primary duty is to the people in your ward, but you're representing all of Uxbridge. You're one of a council of 7. So even though there's 5 geographic areas and 2 regional councillors, you're part of the team. It's your job to either agree or disagree with the other members of council and find a consensus there that works for Uxbridge.
So you can comment on something that happens in someone else's ward.
Absolutely.
And have the expertise to influence.
Absolutely. And with regards to that specific application that you're talking about, the mayor has said it's in the works right now. There's been no decisions made. If you have issues with it, I would suggest that you do, first of all, contact your ward councillor. And if you don't get anywhere there, then you're able to move up the ladder, if you will, to your regional and your mayor as well.
Can you go to other ward councillors and lobby them?
I would suggest you start with those 3 first. As I say, the decision will be coming back to council. You can lobby anyone.
What about Eleanor's opportunity to present a brief to council? Is that
Absolutely. You can make a delegation to council.
You see?
Anytime.
You have a voice.
And we'd love to have you.
I wanted to, a few years back, one of the newspapers, not this one, the other newspaper, criticized...
Then we don't want to hear about it tonight. I'm sorry, Eleanor.
Well, they criticized our ward councillor for interfering or having too much to say about what was happening in another ward.
I think that they've given you an indication that all of them are eligible to speak on an issue, even if it's outside their ward, and that you're welcome to participate in by presenting a brief about this place that you want to see addressed. Next question, please.
My name is Bert Liverance. I'm in Ward 1. My question is for the regional candidates. What are you going to do to protect the double hatters?
Meaning? Please, sorry.
Do you know what a double hatter is?
I think perhaps for everyone here it might be wise to explain.
A double hatter would be a volunteer fireman who also happens to work at a fire department. And the unions penalize those individuals that volunteer in their own community. So my question for you in the region is, what are you going to do to protect the people that volunteer in our community?
Gord?
Thank you for that question. As you know, and as maybe most of the people in the room don't, we have a composite fire department. We have 2 full-time people and a fire prevention officer, and the rest of our guys and gals, we are the first department in the area to have women, two women firefighters, so applause for them. Yeah. Thank you. I'm not taking credit, but we did hire 2 new recruits who are ladies. Anyway, so the guys and gals have been pressured by the authorities to not, and municipalities not to allow 2 hatters. I totally disagree with that. I think these are people that live in our community. They may work in a neighboring fire department full-time, and I don't see any reason why they should not be able to participate and help their local community.
Michelle?
It's one of the rare times I may actually agree with Gord. Are you yourself a firefighter, sir?
No.
Okay, I was going to say you're sitting beside a former chief, so certainly I have a tremendous respect for all of our volunteer firefighters who not only work in other communities but also work at home. So I absolutely am supportive of continuing that practice. If it isn't broken, don't fix it, that we allow the firefighters to volunteer in their own communities.
And the other regional candidates, please. Sorry, Pat, just a second. He did address it to the regional representatives. I'm sorry. No, but I wanted to go to the other regional candidates first. I'll come back to you, Pat. Don't worry. they haven't spoken in a while. John?
Give the mic on. Well, fire is a function of the local municipality under the Municipal Act. So, you know, we dealt with it in Clarington. It caused a lot of problems for us because we had a full-time brigade in Curtis, and in Bowmanville, a part-time brigade in Orono, Hampton, and the issue was a lot of those folks that ran those part-time brigades were actually full-time firefighters from other areas. So, you know, if they're able to perform the job, then they should be there.
Mr. Sai?
I am an institutional liberal, and institutional liberalism would say that you are not supposed to induct outsiders in a professional, environment. And I would suggest that unless the lead is requiring some help, no one should be there. No one should be volunteering without invitation from the lead. And I think that is the way we should react to any emergency. So I would suggest that, yes, we have to stick to the rules and the principles. And only those rules and principles would save us from the fire.
Tom?
Sure. This to me is fairly simple. You have highly trained people that are prepared to give up their time and volunteer and help in your community. They shouldn't be criticized for it. They shouldn't be penalized for it. They should be applauded for it. And thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you.
John Henry, and then Pat.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to all the firefighters in the room. 30 years ago, I graduated as a firefighter from the Fire College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I want to thank their spouses too, because you've got a full-time job, then you come home and you work for your community. It wasn't that long ago at a big event in Ottawa where there was a crowdfunding event to help pay for the costs of a firefighter who worked in Brampton and I believe worked in Caledon, where Mayor Thompson was there, and the crowd raised the money to help cover the cost for what was going on. What a gift of service. Somebody that answers that call and gives up their family on birthdays and anniversaries, and they're trained. You know, we should be helping and supporting this the organization. And for firefighters, there is no good day. It's like a police officer or a paramedic. It's either raining, snowing, it's too hot, it's too cold, and at the end of the day, you go home with what you saw during that day. We need to be supportive of all our firefighters and all emergency personnel.
Pat?
The legislation permits double hatters right now. It's being challenged by the union. That's where the issue is. So I got to tell you, we have 44 or 45 part-time firefighters on our force, and a number of them are double hatters, and we need them. And so do many municipalities all throughout Ontario. Without the professional firefighters that's their job every day, helping, training, and working with our part-time fire departments, I think we'd all be lost. The good thing is that we have a wonderful working relationship with Markham and the surrounding fire departments around us, and it hasn't been an issue for our town. Once you go over 3 full-time employees, that's when the union kicks in. We don't have three full-time employees, and likely won't.
Thanks, Pat. Next question, please.
Hello, Bruce Rodman. I want to thank the candidates up here for being so patient, because I sat there 4 years ago, and it gets pretty hot back there. And as far as the fire department goes, they did me a big favor about 8 years ago. I asked them whether there's going to be a cost to it. They said no, and they kind of got my wife off the roof, so I'm happy for that. But I kind of addressed my question here to the region, and John spoke about the budget. I'm also an accountant, so I look at these things, and I brought up a few things over time to the town and to the region, whether they know it or not. But the question really is, when I look at the financials there, and this kind of ties in with the fact that Uxbridge is being overtaxed, there's no question about that, and maybe all the north is being overtaxed. They're in the Durham region, probably are. But they're sitting there with over $2.5 billion on their balance sheet in cash and convertible liquid securities. They've also got reserves of about, as I can go by memory, somewhere between 1.2 and 1.5.
Who's the they you're talking about, Bruce?
The region.
Thank you.
The regional financials. So you got 2.5 billion. You got reserves of max 1.7. So you got about 800 million of free cash just sitting there.
Question.
some of that's come from Uxbridge, and I'm just pointing out that we are being overtaxed. Now, the other point that...
Sorry, did you have a question, Bruce, on that?
Yeah. Why are we being overtaxed? And two, I would like to see some kind of a draft come out of the regional budget process so that we as a community can go to our mayor or regional council and we can get some input before that budget is passed. Unless something's really offside, you're not going to see it.
Okay, the question is, why are we being overtaxed? John?
I have a little more delay on mine. Anyway,
no, it's just that we're getting there.
Thanks for the question. You're right about being overtaxed. You're 100% right. The regional reserve fund is $1.5 billion. A lot of that's earmarked for certain water plants, certain accommodation infrastructure, as you know. You're overtaxed because I don't think we've actually had a forensic look at the numbers for each municipality. I'm going to give you an example in Brock. Brock pay $1 million for transit to go to Brock. They have on average 25 riders per week. If you take a look at that, that's $40,000 a year per rider. We could actually buy them a Honda Civic, or more importantly, a General Motors product.
Okay. That would make sense.
What we have to do is do that forensic look. We have to do a who does what study so we don't see regional snow blades being raised on local roads and local snow blades being raised on regional roads. We'd have to reduce that duplication, identify the savings, and pass it on to the taxpayer.
Thanks, John.
Okay. And the rest of my question is...
I'm sorry, I want to let the rest of them respond to why are we being overtaxed. You seem to be fairly fervent in that comment.
Right.
It's only fair that they have a chance to answer the question. Who wants to take it on besides John? John Henry.
Well, thank you for the question. And as we've canvassed all parts of the region, that is the number one conversation. It's not just here in Uxbridge. It is a conversation that is going on everywhere. I'm proud to say that when I was elected mayor, I inherited $160 million worth of debt. I'm responsible for it. I didn't make it, but we've paid off almost $100 million worth of debt. But what we've done is we've used lean philosophies, the Black Belt Lean program, Sigma 6, to go in and find improvements within the organization that has allowed us to have savings and put money back into our capital reserves. The province mandated asset management. So earlier there was a comment about assets within communities that have to be maintained. And the province regulates that, so putting money into reserve accounts to meet the needs of our communities, water, sewer, here in town, whether it's roofs on your buildings, is essential to being able to make it work. But I can tell you that in the city of Oshawa, we have used business practices, Black Belt Lean, call it Sigma 6, continuous improvement to our frontline people. We found 7.5 hours in waste, which is the equivalent of another garbage truck and driver on the road every day without buying a truck. 10 hours we found every day in our mechanics because we partnered with the private sector, and Napa Auto Parts now runs our parts department. It's their employee at the counter that looks after and administrates that. And we get one bill a month, not thousands or hundreds.
Thanks, John. I thought, Tom, you had your hand up?
Yeah. I just have a little trouble with what John just mentioned. They are very lean. But they're lean because they've cut services or cut staffing. They have the same amount of firemen for 6 fire halls as they have for 4. They didn't budget for fire trucks. They took one from downtown and moved it up north. Your policing is probably where you're going to find the most troubling numbers. You have 871 officers you had in 2010. You have 873 today. The 2 additional officers are administrative positions. So you're being taxed very heavily, but your services haven't gone up. There's a lot of waste within each and every one of our departments. The largest increase in our budget this year at the region was an 18% increase in administration. So look at those numbers and think about it. Okay. It's not hard to tell where your money's going. It's not going to your services.
Thanks, Tom. I had no other responses from hands except people who have already spoken, and so I'm going to go to them first. I'm sorry. It was John and then John. So if you would like to respond after that, that's fine, but I want to let them go first.
So just a little bit of clarification. We had 5 fire halls in Oshawa. We didn't make the decision on 4. We did a fire master plan, and the Dillon Associates reviewed our master plan and said that we can meet the needs of fire hall number 6 with our existing complement of firefighters. We relocated 1 truck. We moved it from fire hall number 1. We didn't cut services. We actually improved response times for the residents in the entire north end of the city of Oshawa, and didn't hire another fireman because we did the proper data solutions and data management to make sure that we made the right decision.
John Nutton?
I want to be very clear about the debt level in Oshawa. Oshawa, as most of us, used to own your own utility service. Viridian then came about after the amalgamation of utility services. But the city of Oshawa have borrowed, or the term is defeased, the notes of their public utility corporation to the tune of $100 million. So they've actually borrowed from another public body in order to pay down their debt. So let's be very clear about where their debt level payment came from.
And sorry. And then Tom, and that's it.
Just to give you an example, in policing, there was this body-worn cameras. They spent $600,000 on it, while it has created a lot of psychological pressures on the on the force. It has resulted in no improvement of services. That is the kind of gaps which are basically just entrenched interests. And mind you, we have, if we compare Tokyo with American crime rates, those are 13 times less, in Tokyo. Why? Because, the politicians put fear in you that if you are in camera.
The question was on taxation.
Yeah, of course, the taxes come out of the spending they're doing on less technology-driven solutions. They are putting policemen on the roads while we can have cameras and we can reduce expenses. We can reduce expenses in policing, which is $200 million. We can reduce expenses in all other areas by introducing technology, and which would not happen with anyone you would elect here.
Tom, last point to you.
Yeah, I'll just correct Mr. Sahi's last point. The body-worn camera project is actually budgeted for $1.6 million, not $600,000. It's 1.2 plus $400,000 in overtime. But my point was on the fire hall. John Henry is correct that they do have a fire safety plan. The only problem was I was with 25 firefighters in City Council when they were refused an opportunity to have any input on that fire plan. So I think we need to truly, if we're going to really look at this, we have to understand that cuts or reduction in services or stretching our staffing is what the issue is, and that's why you aren't seeing the services that you're seeing up here. Your EMS are being stretched, your fire and your police are being stretched. The first place that, when there's a shortage of ambulances in Durham Region, the first place that loses their ambulance service is Uxbridge.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Thanks, Bruce, for your question. I'm going to have to move on.
Thank you, gentlemen. You've made a lot of good points.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people left. 6 people left. We're going to. Caitlin, I think you're the last. You're not okay. In front. That's where the last question is going to come from, and then I'm going to allow the candidates to offer their closing statements. Don.
Don Andrews. This question is for the mayoral candidates, and then for the regional chair and councillor candidates. For their response, I'd like to hear how they will support the mayoral candidate that's successful. So my question is, which I have not heard yet, but to provide context or maybe a little clue, I would like to hear from the mayoral candidates, what is your economic development plan, which will bring in tax dollars, that includes tourism? What will you do with our cultural sites in that plan? We also have our trails, and how will you deal with a museum property that's never paid for itself?
Okay, we've already dealt with the trails pretty extensively, so
fair
if
enough.
the candidates could deal with the tourism,
economic development, plan and tourism.
And tourism. Pat?
Interesting you asked that question, because I just read an email today that Kathy Weiss, who's our regional economic development officer, is retiring in November, just to let you know. Tourism is an interesting point. We have a BIA in town, we have a lot of businesses in town, and the Township of Uxbridge should be a partner in that. It's not our sole responsibility to develop tourism. We need partners in it, and that being the businesses in town. We've had some success with the BIA in promoting a number of projects that they've done, and it's important. But we're a partner in it. It's not entirely the Township's responsibility. So I just want to start with that.
Specifically, though, can you include your economic development plan with tourism and businesses that are in town? How will you bring in more businesses and tax base so that will help the overall crowd here today?
I think that's exactly my point. It's not how we will, it's not how the township will, it's how we will. We need your help in doing it as well. Dave?
So tourism is key to a number of our businesses. You think of Don, the Tin Mill, Urban Pantry, Corner House, there's many different restaurants in town. And then there's everything else, right? We have all the spin-off businesses as well. We have 100,000 trail users that use Durham Forest. We're not capitalizing on them. We have our tourism properties here that are underutilized. There's some great programming, but not enough of us use it. And then we've got a BIA, a chamber, and tourism, and all these different people, all with very similar job titles. We need to blend those together, maybe top it up to look at economic development, and then move forward. But this is a conversation that needs to be had, and it needs to be high on our priority list.
Diane?
I lived less than an hour away from Uxbridge. I had no idea that Lucy Maud's house was here. I think we need to do a better job of reaching communities that are nearby. I mean, we've got Toronto, we've got Markham, we've got Richmond Hill, lots of people that would come here. But another shortfall, as Michelle mentioned, is the hotel. Yep. We have nowhere for people to stay. A nice small boutique hotel, not a Holiday Inn, not a massive convention center, but a nice small boutique-y hotel where people could come and stay and enjoy the scenery. It's so beautiful here. The scenery, the quiet, the solitude here. Eat downtown at the restaurants. We have so many fast food restaurants going in town. They can get that in Markham. They aren't coming here for that. I can tell you I came here years ago for Art in the Park. I looked downtown and there was nowhere for me to take my daughters for lunch. We wanted to have a nice lunch. I didn't want to go to McDonald's, or not that there's anything wrong with McDonald's, but I was looking for something, you know, cutesy, towny, and there was nothing here then. We have Urban Pantry now. We have Passionate Cook now. We need to make sure that local areas like Toronto, where there's a huge population, know about these things and come here and enjoy it. But
Michelle.
Again, we need a hotel.
Michelle?
So one of the things I think, again, was amiss is the investment that the town has made in economic development. And one of the things that I've committed to as your full-time regional councillor is to take on that portfolio of economic development. I can make those cold calls to grocery stores. So, for example, we can have another option here in town, because we're losing that business right now to Stouffville, Newmarket, and to Port Perry. So those are the kinds of things that I think that add value, and they're at no additional cost to the taxpayer, right? You're already paying me anyway as your regional councillor, so I'm happy to take on that portfolio and do that work.
John Mutton.
Thank you very much.
And then Tom.
From my position, I would be here to totally support the council and the residents of the township of Uxbridge by creating the right climate for economic development and job growth here, which does include the reduction in taxes for industrial and for commercial development here, and for the tourism sector. We should be looking at development charge exemptions for people to relocate into Uxbridge to bring their economy with them. And one of my commitments has been regarding high-speed internet, of which I used to be the chairman of Viridian Corporation. I've already met with them on the ability to bring high-speed internet into Uxbridge, Scugog, and Brock. We are even down to the point where we need to get access to a second regional road conduit in order to bring the dark fiber up. one of the big things that I've seen from my travels in my private sector company, Nelson, BC, and so on, is that the communities that have become high-speed communities have done very, very well for tourism and for economic development and job growth.
Thanks, John. Tom?
Sure.
And then John Henry.
One of the jobs of the regional chair, possibly one of the most important jobs of the regional chair, is to make sure that all communities have a voice on council, and to make sure that everything north of 7 and everything east of Oshawa matters. Council doesn't create business, but it creates the environment to create business. We need to support your mayor and support your council. And I don't know what that was, but we need to listen to the Chamber of Commerce and your BIAs. These are your subject matter experts. We need to focus on those very sectors that you've pointed out, which are the cultural and entertainment sectors, which are underdeveloped. They represent between 1% and 3% of our businesses. We need to work on highlighting key features in each municipality, like your trail network here, or like Nordic Spa and Whitby, that will become the anchors that other small businesses can build upon and draw more people and make Uxbridge and the surrounding areas a destination location. They create spin-offs for other local businesses, and that's important. We need to continue to obviously build on your agribusiness, and I'm sure we'll get into that at some point today.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
John Henry.
Thank you. I haven't been, during my time on council, I've been in Uxbridge. This isn't new for me to be just here for an election. I've been participating up here for a very long time and met many of you at the last farmers event that was right here in this very building. You know, I'm excited about working with the mayors and creating town halls where we actually get to listen to you. I'm excited about lighting up our employment lands along the 407 corridor so that our young people have a place to work. A 30-minute commute to work.
John, the tourism, I think, is what the focus of this answer is. Please.
Just to say that this is an amazing community. I come up here to spend my time. We've got to market and sell the entire region. No part of the region is a single slice of pie. We need to make a whole pie, and that includes the slice of Uxbridge.
Gord, did you have a thought there, please?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the question, Don. As you know, being the former chair of the BIA, you understand the issues in the downtown. During my term as councillor, we have formed an Economic Development Advisory Committee. We've been able to convince council to hire a tourism facilitator, a trails coordinator, and we have pushed the region, and if I get down there, I will be pushing the region even harder for more of their economic development officer in Uxbridge. She's a wonderful gal. She's up here 2 days a week, but it's too much to handle for one person for 2 days. We need more commitment from the region, and that's one of the reasons I will be pushing for it when I get to there.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you for your answers.
Thanks, Don.
We need a strategic plan, including economic development, and a strong leader to push this forward.
Thank you, Don. Next question, please.
Hi, Karen Materniak. I've been here in Uxbridge 20 years. I came here to raise a family, and I loved everything about Uxbridge. Thought it was the most charming place to move. My problem that I've seen over the years that I've been here are all these vacancies and empty stores. And I asked my teenagers, they're teenagers now, and one's off in university, I'm like, what are you concerned about with Uxbridge? Like, how am I going to get my kids to come back to Uxbridge, right? Like, what is it in them?
There's your question.
Come back. So
how you get the kids to come back?
The problem they're saying is, look at the stores. Like, it's not like a Port Perry. There's people that can't keep a business for more than 4 or 5 months. Why are there vacancies? There's been places vacant for over 19 years.
Sorry, Karen. You both are valid questions.
Thank you.
May I just pick up on the youth one,
Yeah.
please? I think no one's raised that, so that's a good one. How do we get young people who leave this town to go to university or wherever to come home and continue their lives here? Pat, and we'll go right around the pike if you like.
It's not an easy answer. Let's face it, there's a new development going out on Reach Street, and those homes start at $900,000. So to get them to come back home again, they're probably going to want to put an addition on your house, and that's where they're going to want to live, because that's what my son's asking me for. I'm sorry, but it is a reality. I mean, the cost of homes here are just they're outrageous. One good thing that it's happened, and one of the results of doing the downtown culvert is that it takes all of those businesses downtown and all those buildings downtown out of the floodplain. And what that does, that's going to allow, right now, if one of those businesses or one of those buildings burnt down downtown, you couldn't rebuild it because it's in a floodplain. Once the culvert is finished, all those businesses, including our old fire hall, come out of the floodplain. That's why we haven't sold it, because when it's out of the floodplain, it's worth twice as much money, so we're waiting. But when we're out of the floodplain, it means we can now add residential to the downtown. So we may see some, at least rental. There's not even any rental in this town. So at least by doing that and changing some of the zoning from a C32 to a C3, which means we can allow residential as a result of taking those buildings out of the floodplain, it can really help the downtown. And that's one of the simple reasons. But for kids to move back here, I have a daughter that lives in New Brunswick and a son that lives in Lindsay. And quite frankly, I don't know how to make the houses cheaper here in Uxbridge.
Thanks, Pat. Mr. Sahi.
It would be strange to say, but if we look at the crowd here today, obviously the young people are not here. And the reason is obvious. The young people, they want to live in communities where there's more fun than out, in the and out in the, outer municipalities. So there's no way that you can have, the dream world being built here. It would only happen if we can reduce the taxes, if we can introduce liberal arts to communities, if we can introduce, if we can move away from, Durham being an industrial part and making it a different. If we change direction, then it might happen. But if we cannot change the direction to a cosmopolitan culture, then it would never happen. And eventually, that has happened to a lot of municipalities. It's not something new which is happening here. The young people, they just flee and go to the most desired destination.
Thank you. Dave?
So, Karen, thanks for the question. And when we went to the Cosmos Doug Griffith event, they talked about a boomerang theory, where you take your young people, you educate them in Uxbridge, then you send them off to university and have them come back to fill needs here. And that's something we have to keep on thinking about is how to bring the talent that we require in Uxbridge back. Again, the people like Jen Wilson who came back to practice here. Now, the other thing is creating the type of town that they want to return to. Most of my friends that I was close with in high school, they may have left for a few years, but when they want to raise their families, they come back here because this is home. When I've been knocking on doors, I continue to talk to people that were from Brooklyn and Stouffville and places like that. And they come to Uxbridge because this feels like their communities when they were there. So I think we're doing a pretty decent job. Again, as you knock on doors, there's 25 and 30-year-olds that lived in Brooklyn and lived in Stouffville that are back. We have to keep on doing the good and keep on making Uxbridge the kind of place that we want to return to.
Thanks, Dave. Anybody else? Tom? And then John Henry?
Well, we've touched briefly on it, but the average price of a house in Uxbridge is $663,869. It's the most expensive housing in Durham region, and it's obviously very difficult to get people to come back once they've left. The other difficulty is 3 out of 4 businesses are dependent on high-speed internet. If we don't have high-speed internet, we don't have jobs. We don't have people to fill those vacant storefronts that you're talking about. Even if we were able to attract businesses as a result of expanding on the opportunities with your trail systems or other things within this town, if we can't get high-speed internet here, those businesses aren't going to stay. We have to be able to focus on that. Technology is changing quickly, and there is opportunities to get broadband here. We have to make it a priority, and we have to make it a priority to try and attract jobs, or at least allow people to work from home.
Thanks, Tom. John Henry, and then Michelle, and then Gord.
So thank you. Community improvement plans are great ways to fix downtown. An example of that is how we're able to reinvent the Janosh Hotel in downtown Oshawa. Tomorrow, we open, I believe over the next 3 days, 3 new restaurants in downtown Oshawa. And broadband is key. We, as a municipality, own 100 kilometers of dark fiber optics cable owned by our utility. And just to correct the amount, it was $23 million that the city borrowed, and 2 members of that council went to work for Mr. Mutton. But on that note, we are able to light up our community. Currently, we've partnered with Bell. Bell's doing a $100 million investment in Oshawa, and they're doing a $60 million investment in Clarington, and we can work together to take that through the region. Imagine what would happen if we lit up all the employment lands from Brock Road to the 115 on the 412 and the 418, so our kids could go to school in our community and live where they were born.
Thanks, John. Michelle, and then I think I said Gord.
So I won't repeat the part about the internet, but of course we do have a case in point here in Scarsden. They wanted to add a second location, and they just simply couldn't find any place here to do that offered high-speed internet. Having said that, the fixed costs for some of our downtown storefronts are really high, and again, it goes back to the high cost of taxes. And then frankly, when our young people come back from university and they start their first jobs, where are they going to live? We already established it's not going to be your house. But really, I mean, what we're building right now is $600,000-$700,000 townhomes. And we're not asking these developers when they're coming into town and building new communities, and we have very, very few sewage capacity units left to be able to develop in our town. So we have to be really thoughtful about what we're doing with them. And I think it's incumbent upon us as council members, if I have the privilege of serving you, is to ask those developers to be building a certain amount to be affordable housing and a certain amount to be appropriate for seniors, because once those sewage capacity units are gone, we've lost those opportunities forever.
Thanks, Michelle. Gord, last talk to you.
Thank you for your question. I'm in the same boat that you are. I have students. Last one is still in university, but she'll be home soon. The issue they have, not so much the fun and games, that'll look after itself. It's where do they live, and the price, we've already talked about that. The Township of Uxbridge has been very proactive. We have actually created a new program for opening auxiliary apartments, either within an existing dwelling or in a secondary dwelling. So we are opening the door to having people, with affordable rents. It helps the homeowner too, in that they can rent either a portion of their home or an ancillary building and rent it out to the appropriate people. Part of the new provincial zoning is they're allowing us within new developments to set aside a portion of that development for affordable housing, so that we will have the tools to demand the developer, let's say out of 100 units, they would be building, let's say 10 affordable housing units out of that 100. So those tools are coming to us. We have to, again, justify to the province why we want these things. So there's more to the process than actually forcing them to do it today, but these tools are coming forward. From a regional perspective, I think you have more bang for the buck down there. We're just a little Uxbridge, but talking about OP regulations, being a little bit more flexible on allowing us to put in affordable housing in various communities, I think is the key for the future, because it's not just students, it's seniors. They may live in a house that's worth $900,000, but where are they going to move to? There are very few small bungalows or townhomes available that people can transition to from their existing home.
Okay, folks, we're in a bit of a crunch here. Thanks for the question, Karen. I don't want to, I said we would address the questions from these folks. Rogers is requiring us to wrap up with your comments. If you're prepared to do your one minute conclusions, if I could impose on you, once those are done and we're off the air, could you please stay long enough to answer these four people's questions? Would that be allowed? Okay. So we're going to do in reverse order from what we did, and please have patience, folks, so that we can get through these last moments together. I'm going to start with the Durham Region Chair candidates in reverse order. Mr. Sahi, if you'd like to use the lectern, or from there if you're fine, please.
I'm really grateful for you to coming here, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to give you an idea of how I think. I think that regional chair does not have effective, it is not an effective position to change the tax code or change your tax, bills. It is actually a very ceremonial post. And if we have to look to the province for municipal reforms, that is the only avenue I see of change of direction. And in change of direction, I would tell you, unless we change direction of this region to liberal arts, opening up, forcing province to introduce our university to the most progressive liberal arts, we would have a population only set for the General Motors. So we have a problem of direction. If we cannot change direction, then these taxes would stay here. And these politicians would say whatever they say, but nothing would change.
Thank you
and
very
I can
much.
guarantee a directional change, and that is my politics.
Thank you. John Mutton, please. It's there.
Oh, we got the mic again. Once again, thank you very much to the Uxbridge Cosmos and Ted for hosting this evening's event. I cut taxes once as Chairman of Finance and as Mayor of the Municipality of Clarington, and I'm going to do it again as Regional Chairman. Serving as Durham's Chairman of Finance and Economic Development Committee, that strengthened my understanding of Durham's complex economy, manufacturing, agriculture, education, small business, and energy. My platform focuses on lower taxes, economic growth, and improving transit and infrastructure. Can we support increased economic growth and make life better for our residents? It also includes a commitment to take immediate and fulsome action on how your money is spent at Durham Region by freezing the regional chairman's office budget and salary and eliminating waste so that every single hard-earned tax dollar is being spent wisely and appropriately.
30 seconds.
It includes a commitment of accountability and transparency to you, the taxpayer. Ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to continuing to work to earn your vote and to be worthy of it as the next regional chairman. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John Mutton. John Henry.
For 8 years, it's been an honor to be the mayor of Durham's largest city, working with my fellow regional councillors on important issues like the completion of the 407 to the 115 by 2021 and getting the GO train into Clarington by 2024. We worked hard together to make sure that during the last provincial elections, the cost of energy, global adjustment charges, and the tolls on the 412 and 418 were front and center. I've had the privilege to work with my colleagues on council to create $2 billion worth of new investment in Oshawa in the last 4 years and used lean methodologies to improve operations. We were the first teaching city in Canada. In the words of Jack Ballinger, I am pleased to endorse John Henry as the next chairperson of Durham Region. John Henry is a tireless worker and has gained the respect from his colleagues. He has acquired a great deal of experience dealing with local and regional issues and sees the whole picture. By that I mean he would deal with all 8 communities in a fair and consistent manner. He knows the region geographically and has on numerous occasions taken time out of his busy schedule to frequent different events. I have personally worked with John Henry over the past 8 years and admire him for his honesty, generosity, dedication, and intelligence he brings to regional council. Thank you, Jack. Today, I ask the residents of Uxbridge for their support. Let's work together to build a better Durham for you, your kids, and your grandkids. On October 22nd, vote John Henry for regional chair.
Thank you, John. Tom.
Well, as I said in my introduction, I'm not a politician. I'm somebody just like you, somebody who has for years sat back and watched as politicians say, if re-elected, I promise I'll do a better job. And I've listened time and time again to people say, why vote? Why bother? Nothing ever changes. Well, nothing ever changes because the only options we've ever had are to elect politicians. I'd look at things differently. I've been the one on the front lines dealing with people in crisis. I've been the person that's taken people to hospital and spent days, or hours, with them waiting for help only to find out the resources and the services don't exist. I've been the one to knock on doors and tell people that their loved ones commit suicide or that their loved ones have been murdered. I bring a totally different perspective. I bring a perspective of looking at things through a common sense lens, much like you. When you look at things and you look at a budget and you see that budgets are continually going up and there's no additional staffing and no services being hired, you have to wonder what's happening.
30 seconds.
What's happening is we've had the same people looking at the same problems through the same lens for 20 years. Most of my opponents, with the exception of Mr. Sahi, have a record of their performance. Please don't take it from them. Google it. Look at their records. Find out if they did in fact reduce taxes or if they voted themselves a raise. Look at the businesses that they created, but look at the ones that have fled their cities. And look at why Oshawa is the only place in Ontario that a Tim Hortons is not a viable business. There are issues that have been ignored. And it's been happening 2 blocks from City Hall. I can fix these issues because I've dealt with it on the front line, and I know how to build teams, and I know how to get results. And that's why I'm asking for your support, because together we can get things done, and we can eliminate the waste and improve our services.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much.
Tom Dingwall. Now the regional councillor positions. First to hear from Michelle Vani.
Once again, thank you to Leisha from the Cosmos. Ted, you've done an amazing job keeping us on track. And to Rogers TV as well for being here to capture for people who weren't able to be here with us today. The fact remains that we send more than half of every one of your property tax dollars to the region, leaving only 25 cents of every dollar for Uxbridge to provide services here. This is about fairness for Uxbridge taxpayers. Don't just take my word for it. It's on the enclosure which accompanied your 2018 final tax bill. 59 cents of every dollar goes to the region, 25 cents stays here, and the remaining 16 cents goes to education. I offer new and fresh ideas to solve long-standing challenges in our community, and I am prepared to face unexpected new ones that may come our way. I will consult with you and communicate with you. As your full-time regional councillor, I will be accessible and available to you to ensure that Uxbridge continues to be a wonderful community in which to live. I want to put my more than 27 years of experience in the private and public sectors to work for you.
30 seconds.
With your support and vote, I will be your voice on Uxbridge Council and the voice of Uxbridge at the region of Durham. Vote Michelle Vani for Uxbridge Regional Councillor. A vote for Vani is a voice for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Gord Hyatt.
This is an exciting but critical time for the people of Uxbridge and for Durham Region. It is essential that our municipality be well represented by a professional and knowledgeable regional councillor who understands the complexities and outcomes of decisions. We need an honest and straightforward approach to your concerns. As a parent, neighbor, and fellow taxpayer, I understand the issues and concerns of Uxbridge residents. Municipal services, infrastructure projects, and other costs must be carefully planned out and budgeted for in an affordable and sustainable manner. Maximizing the value we receive for tax dollars is important to us all. My long-standing commitment and service on Uxbridge Council and over 33 years of business experience enable me to effectively and efficiently represent Uxbridge to obtain the best value for regional and local tax dollars. I am the experienced voice for Uxbridge, and as your regional councillor, I am fully committed and engaged to serve the best interests of all residents and taxpayers of our community. Elect Gord Hyatt, regional councillor for Uxbridge, working with you for a better Uxbridge. Thank you for your support.
Thanks, Gord. And now the mayoral candidates, beginning with Diane Reilly.
I am not a long-term resident of Uxbridge. I've been here for 5 years, but I chose to come here. I was not born here, I chose to. People who were born here don't seem to realize what a gem they have and how it is slipping away. The sense of community, the arts, the studio tour, the theater, the Lucy Maud's Society, the Uxbridge Farmers Market, a favorite of mine, and the local farmers where I shop. There's less traffic congestion and the area is just beautiful. I can walk downtown and don't have to drive everywhere like I did in the city. I think a time has come for change. We are overtaxed in Uxbridge. I pay a lot more tax than I did in Markham for a house and property that was larger and more expensive. The fact that we have been overtaxed has been clear tonight. Uxbridge is like an oasis in the storm. I have lived through overdevelopment and don't believe that you will like it.
30 seconds.
I'm an excellent networker. I know that I don't have strengths in every area, but I will network and have already started to network with people who have expertise in different areas, and we can rely on different expertise to make a sound decision when we're deciding where Uxbridge goes from here.
Thank you, Diane. Diane Reilly. Pat?
Thank you. I know we haven't got much time, but there's a few things that I think we have to discuss, and I just want to get some points across. One of the things I heard at the door, at so many doors that we've knocked on, is traffic. And I think one thing we can do, we have to start working on. I think one thing we can do is we can reduce those 50-kilometer-an-hour zones to 40. I know that nobody's going to drive 40, but maybe they'll drive 50 instead of 60. But it's something we can do easily in this town, and it's something we should get working on very, very quickly. I think something else that we don't do very well in our town is communicate. How many people here know that we actually film our council sessions and we put them on YouTube? Not very many. We do. We film all of our council sessions, and you can see them on YouTube. So we have to do a much better job communicating with you clearly, and that's something that we're going to work on in the future. The other thing we haven't talked about today is the job. The position of mayor is a position of huge responsibility. It's up to the mayor to ensure the council stays focused, works diligently, listens to the people, and does what really we need to serve the people in our community. It's not an easy task. You're also a regional councillor, so you've got to deal both at a regional level and at a local level. I got to tell you, in the last 8 years I've been on council, we've had some great councils. We've worked well together. We run a very, very efficient township. I mean, you heard some of the tax dollars, but we do run a very, very efficient township, and I'm very, very proud of that, and I'm proud of the people I've worked with for the last 8 years. Once again, strong leadership is what we need here, and experience. There's a lot of things that go on in this township. We need to have the experience to make those difficult decisions. I am a strong leader. I can make those strong decisions, and your priorities are my priorities. And just one other quick note. Please don't vote on the 22nd. We really need you to get out there a lot earlier than that. You know, we obviously have a postal strike coming, so please, when you get your ballots, try to get them out as soon as you can. We do have a couple plan Bs, but please vote as quickly as you can. And thank you all so much for coming out tonight.
Thanks, Pat.
You're wonderful.
Pat Malloy. Finally, Dave Barton.
Everyone, this has been an incredible night. The interaction, the sheer number of people here is incredible. And I've heard some just fantastic questions here tonight, and thank you for them. Now, the majority of people in this room already know me. And you've seen me volunteering at events, you've seen me on social media, you've seen me at the coffee shops and in our local stores. I'm already a member of this community. I've loved serving Ward 3, and I want to continue doing that for all of Uxbridge. We need to ensure that we're getting our fair share of regional, provincial, and federal tax dollars that we already send to them. We need them back here in Uxbridge. And this hasn't been happening. In 2018, against my advice, we didn't even apply for a Trillium grant through any of our service clubs. That was a huge missed opportunity. We have very limited property taxes coming in to Uxbridge, and we need to ensure that we're creative and thinking outside the box as we spend those for you. We're not a big municipality. We can't hire tons of consultants to do things. We need to be more creative and learn from others.
30 seconds.
And then in our downtown core, we need architectural control. We need office space downtown so that places like Scarson can expand, as well as places like Wolf. And then we are desperate for, we talked a lot about the cost of living in Uxbridge. We are desperate for rental accommodations in our downtown core that are accessible for seniors and the young. And again, we need a common sense approach to Uxbridge. Vote Dave Barton for mayor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave. Ladies and gentlemen, I think the people seated and standing before you have illustrated a number of important things tonight. They put themselves on the line. They've extended their necks to express their positions on policies and issues in response to your questions. They've responded to the moderator's quirky kinds of questions just to kind of get things going. And they do this more often than just once in an election. I think we owe them a great deal of thanks for their commitment, whether they win or lose, They've been an extraordinary group of people to address all of our questions as best they can. And I think, as an illustration of my point initially, not even a notwithstanding clause could prevent us from going out and voting for an important series of people who will represent us for the next 4 years. Thank you, candidates. Let's show our appreciation. And with the broadcast done,